since the day Hong Zhuang had refused him. Although he had never seen her since, his heart had never left her. Perhaps it was because no one had ever refused him outright before, or since Bailey Hong Zhuang was simply too beautiful, but he had always dreamed about her. The dress Bailey Hong Zhuang wore today exuded a fascinating charm. His feelings to the minister's young missus faded away in a split second, replaced by a brilliant light as he looked at her. In his eyes, there was only Hong Zhuang. When the maidens who were trying to attract Xianyuan Huan's attention saw Bailey Hong Zhuang steal their limelight, their expressions all turned ugly. Today's the drafting feast for His Highness, so what's Hong Zhuang doing here? Voices of jealousy and discontent spread amongst the crowd. Although she had previously rejected the crown prince, many people wondered, could she have had a change of heart? Bailey Yin directly stepped out of the crowd and spoke. Hong Hong, this is a banquet hosted by the imperial family. You who's not even the daughter of an official or minister, how could you be here? After her words were spoken, everybody's eyes landed on Bailey Hong Zhuang's body. Even the distant emperor and empress silently noted down the fact. Bailey Hong Zhuang laughed enchantingly. Although it wasn't as elegant, it invoked a different kind of charm. Sister, you don't recognize me? Her cold voice was mocking as she stared at Bailey Yuyan, enjoying the look on her face. Listening to her familiar voice, Bailey Yuyan turned as pale as a ghost, watching Bailey Hong Zhuang, stunned as she asked, "Why you are?" Bailey Hong Zhuang. Bailey Hong Zhuang spoke slowly, her voice firm and unquestionable. I am Bailey Hong Zhuang. Today, she had told everybody her true identity. Everybody stared at Bailey Hong Hong in shock. None of them were strangers to this name. The abandoned crown princess. The general household's second miss who was unable to cultivate that trash. With such a reputation, Bailey Hong Hong was like a joke in everybody's eyes, just a pitiful creature that a few sympathized with. But staring at that radiant figure in front of them, they were just simply unable to link the two together. Impossible. How could you be Bailey Hong Zhuang? Bailey Yuyan's eyes widened as horror seized her heart, too panicked to even consider trying to maintain her image. Compared to Bailey Yuyan's blundering, Bailey Hong Zhuang was indifferent, every move appearing elegant. We've been living together for more than 10 years, so even if you had blinded me, I've never forgotten how you looked. But you can't recognize me even as I stand right in front of you. I'm really saddened. Bailey Hong Zhuang smiled, casually saying the bloody facts as if they weren't about her. Everybody was in an uproar. The crowd all forgot about the evening banquet, immersed in Bailey Hong Zhuang's words. Hong Zhuang, she's actually the general household's trash miss, Bailey Hong Zhuang. Although they had felt that the name Hong Zhuang was a little familiar, none of them thought that the two names would be connected. Bailey Hong Zhuang said Bailey Yuyan blinded her. Bailey Yuyan even robbed her little sister's fiancé, so why couldn't she have blinded Bailey Hong Zhuang as well? Bailey Jintao, Su Wanjing, and Bailey Haoshuan were frozen, stupefied, focusing on the stunning face in front of them. They clearly felt it was somewhat familiar, although they were reluctant to admit it. In their hearts, they clearly knew that this woman really was Bailey Hong Zhuang. Whether it was looks or voice, they were practically the same. The only difference was her temperament, which had undergone an earth-shattering change. Bailey Yuyan's face was extremely ugly to behold. She just couldn't accept the fact right in front of her. She had always thought that her plans were always perfect. But if this woman in front of her really was Bailey Hong Hong, then wouldn't that mean Bailey Hong Zhuang saw everything that she did? Then, as a result, Bailey Hong Zhuang can seek revenge. She had even told the public that Bailey Yuyan snatched Xianyuan Huan from her own little sister. Other than Bailey Hong Zhuang, who else could have known what happened so clearly? Xianyuan Huan was also shocked. Earlier, he had definitely probed around and made sure that Hong Zhuang and Bailey Hong Hong were entirely unrelated. But he never even dreamed that the two were actually the same person. How could she have changed so much? He had seen Bailey Hong Hong many times, and she was always been unbearably ugly and submissive. She couldn't catch even the slightest bit of his interest. But looking at her body blooming with a womanly brilliance, How could it possibly be the Bailey Honghang he loathed? It was impossible for somebody to change their appearance so much in such a short time. Before, was Bailey Hongzhuang deliberately hiding her looks? Thinking of this, Xin Yuan Huan's expression became too ugly to be described. Since Bailey Hongzhuang arguably had no real reason to hide her looks, it could only mean one thing. She didn't want to marry him. Recalling when he had proposed to her, and how she had rejected him without hesitation, it must have been payback. He had abandoned her, so now she's rejecting him. He rejected her, so that must have been why she had thought that he was so unbearable. Xin Yuan Yutian and Jiang Jining looked at each other, doubt in their eyes. This elegant woman in front of them was Xin Yuan Huan's betrothed that was said to be trash? General Bailey, what is this? Didn't she grow blind? Xin Yuan Yutian's voice was heavy. He had canceled the engagement because he had heard that Bailey Hongzhuang had gone blind, but this woman standing here and the woman from the rumors were completely different. Cold sweat dripped from Bailey Jintao's forehead as he said hastily. Reporting to the emperor, Bailey Hongzhuang had indeed lost her sight earlier, but had been cured recently. Suddenly questioned, Bailey Jintao could only fumble up some words. In fact, even he had no idea what happened. Cured, Xin Yuan Yutian frowned. Then why didn't you say so? This little official had only just found out. Droplets of cold sweat oozed out from Bailey Jintao. If his answer wasn't good, then he'd be faulted for deceiving the emperor. General, Godly Doctor Square has been open before January even started. How could you've only found out today? Li Chengxian asked. In his heart, Bailey Jintao silently cursed all 18 generations of Li Chengxian's family and said, Bailey Honghang hid it from us, so we didn't know anything. Seeing Bailey Jintao's panicked, quibbling appearance, although Xin Yuan Huan's face was filled with displeasure, he stopped his questioning. We'll talk about this later. Bailey Jintao's head bobbed up and down, his heart constantly thinking over what to say next time to the emperor. The most important thing is how he himself had no idea. The drafting feast continued, and the empress began to select some girls, one by one, and ask them to leave. They all left in a rush, embarrassed. Bailey Hongzhuang lazily sampled the royal snacks as the palace maids and eunuchs shuttled back and forth, constantly replacing them with new desserts. The two black and white fur balls watched the scene as if they had just seen a 10-foot-high cake, almost about to drool. Bailey Hongzhuang was clearly in a good mood and warned the kids not to stray too far before letting them out to play. Dibei Chan sat by Bailey Hongzhuang's side, a light smile on his face as he asked, You aren't even a little bit worried? What do you think about Bailey Jintao's status in Fengbo country? Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow as she took a grape and ate it. Deeply ingrained, Dibei Chen revealed a smile. With just a few words, he understood what Bailey Honghang had meant. Because Bailey Jintao always rushed headlong into the battlefield, his status was deeply ingrained in Fengbo country. Nowadays, the most suitable general to lead the fierce soldiers was Bailey Jintao, so Xin Yuan Yutian would be forced to consider the bigger picture, and so would only punish a little to prevent a lot. Although Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't exactly close to Bailey Jintao, she was still to be considered his daughter. There wouldn't be any life-threatening dangers. You've dealt a great hand. However, now Bailey Yuyan's really wretched. Following Dibei Chen's line of sight, she noticed Bailey Yuyan encompassed by a group of girls. Even with the distance, she could still hear their sarcastic words. You feel sorry for her? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. She couldn't feel that Bailey Yuyan was wretched. The sarcastic and mocking comments were only her first taste. But she, Bailey Hongzhuang, had lived in such an environment her entire life. Even though Bailey Yuyan's reputation wasn't very good now, the general household had never made her suffer. But for her, never full, always hungry, and even a servant could come and bully her as they pleased. In comparison, even now Bailey Yuyan was already treated far better than her. Dibei Chen shook his head. No, I don't feel sorry for her. Bailey Honghang's eyes flashed, shocked. She thought everyone would feel bad of Bailey Yuyan. But why did Dibei Chen think differently? But I do feel sorry for you. Bei Chen's words were serious. When he had investigated Bailey Honghao's identity, he had also found out what her life was like before. It was hard to believe that this arrogant woman here today had actually grown up in that kind of environment. It was no wonder that she didn't feel the least bit bad for Bailey Yuyan. If it was him, then he would have been even more merciless. Bailey Honghao's face stiffened. This was the first time she had seen Bei Chen so serious. Not knowing what else to do, Bailey Hongzhuang could only fake calmness as she watched the show, pretending nothing happened, eating her grapes. Wifey, are the grapes really that tasty? Bei Chen asked with a smile. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at the plate. She had already eaten all the grapes, and her hand had just been reaching for thin air. Pretty tasty. Bailey Hongzhuang could only continue to act calm. Bei Chen grinned and pushed his own platter of grapes to Bailey Hongzhuang. Since you like it, eat some more. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Bei Chen before continuing to eat the grapes. In fact, these grapes were actually really, really good. Bailey Hongzhuang, what tricks are you playing? Bailey Haoshuan walked briskly to Bailey Hongzhuang, his young face filled with disgust. At first, when he had just seen Bailey Honghao, Bailey Haoshuan also astonished. But then he remembered that his older sister's current predicament was all because of Bailey Honghao. This woman truly made him feel disgusted from the bottom of his heart. What do my tricks have to do with you? Bailey Hongzhuang sneered at him. Since childhood, Bailey Haoshuan and her had never got along. Although she never did a thing, Bailey Haoshuan would always try to harm her whenever he got a chance. If you could describe Bailey Yuyan as spoiled, then Bailey Haoshuan would be considered ruthless. Bailey Haoshuan's face was dark as he growled through clenched teeth. You did this to my sister today. I won't let you off. As he spoke, Bailey Haoshuan raised his glass, splashing it towards Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Bailey Hongzhuang's charming face turned cold. Just as she was about to move, Bei Chen acted. He moved forward and swung open his fan, blocking all the water. Bailey Haoshuan's face paled as he looked at Bei Chen. Could Bei Chen and Bailey Hongzhuang possibly be in a relationship? Otherwise, why else would he help her? Whoosh! While Bailey Haoshuan was confused, Bailey Honghao had already picked up a pot of wine and threw it at his head. Drip! Drip! The wine ran down Bailey Haoshuan's face, dripping on the floor, ringing with a crisp sound. The originally extraordinary handsome Bailey Haoshuan had turned into a drenched chicken. He looked up at Bailey Hongzhuang, stunned. Up until now, Bailey Hongzhuang had never dared to fight back whenever he bullied her. What's been happening with Bailey Honghao recently? Everything's different from before. The corners of her mouth widened into a thoughtful smile. Bailey Honghao leaned over to whisper in Bailey Haoshuan's ear, Now, it's not you who won't let me off, but I won't let you off. I won't let you off. His voice was both confused and threatening. Bailey Haoshuan still felt as if her breath was by his ear, her words chilling the air, giving him an ominous premonition. Bailey Hongzhuang, who cares if you're blind or not? You're still that trash, unable to withstand a single blow. Bailey Haoshuan forced himself to ignore it, his words strong and overbearing. Bailey Hongzhuang walked back, a smile still on her face as she spat out the words one by one. Come at me. Umph. Bailey Haoshuan snorted coldly and left angrily. He didn't believe that trash would be able to do anything. After the evening banquet ends, she'll be the one out of luck. Watching Bailey Hongzhuang's performance, Bei Chen smiled. You've just offended all of the general's household again. It's a rather dangerous spot for you to return to now. Since I've come out, I never had any plans on returning to the general's household. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold. Even if she were to tell Bailey Jintao that she wasn't trash, it was unlikely that anything would change. He had always despised her since the day she was born. Bei Chen's smile widened. Well, if wifey has nowhere to go, then my Chun Imperial Palace will always welcome you. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression turned disdainful. How come every time the guy begins to act decent, he just has to reveal his true colors? As they chattered, the drafting feast began to finish. Empress Jiang Jining asked for Xianyuan Huan for his opinion, a smile on her face. Huan, who do you like? Today's drafting feast not only for them to select a crown princess, but also for Xianyuan Huan to get some concubines and servants. This, Xianyuan Huan can choose himself. Xianyuan Yutian also smiled. If there's any woman you favor, just say her name. Everybody turned to stare at Xianyuan Huan. The maidens eagerly looked at him, anticipating his answer, hoping they managed to attract his attention. Bailey Yuyin also watched eagerly. She still remembered the loving words they shared together and hoped that he did as well. I want her. Xianyuan stretched out his finger, pointing at a woman. Bailey Honghaon was bored to death as she chatted idly with Di Bei-chun. During the banquet, she had actually become quite familiar with him. Thankfully, this guy also didn't really like the banquet, so they both preferred to sit in the corner and eat happily. But suddenly, everybody's eyes were on them. Bailey Hongzhuang lifted her eyes and looked around. The person Xianyuan Huan was referring to was actually her, Bailey Hongzhuang. Xianyuan Huan slowly said. The moment Bailey Hongzhuang appeared, his eyes had never moved elsewhere. Although he didn't understand how Bailey Hongzhuang changed so much, he just couldn't forget about her. Just by watching Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Bei-chun chattering so happily, his heart was uncomfortable. In any case, he just had to get Bailey Hongzhuang as his woman. When everybody saw Xianyuan Huan choose Bailey Honghaon, the expressions on their face all became strange. Only a month ago, Bailey Hongzhuang was abandoned by him, and moreover, Xianyuan Huan himself had even asked for the engagement to be canceled many times. But now he wants her back. Isn't this just like a joke? Bailey Yuyin watched Xianyuan Huan in shock. She couldn't believe that he actually chose Bailey Hongzhuang. Xianyuan Yutian and Jiang Jining's faces' expressions momentarily turned ugly when they heard his answer. Xianyuan Huan could choose any woman present in the banquet. Any woman but Bailey Hongzhuang. Cannot. Xianyuan Yutian's voice was imposing, with the aura of a ruler. A emperor's words weren't a joke. He himself had canceled the engagement before, so how could he go back and make Bailey Hongzhuang the crown princess again? No matter how amazing Bailey Hongzhuang may be now, she and Xianyuan Huan absolutely cannot be together again. Xianyuan Huan's expression changed as he looked at Xianyuan Yutian's rigid face, about to retort back when Jiang Jining suddenly stopped him. Huan, don't make trouble. Jiang Jing lowered her voice. Imperial Mother, your son only likes Bailey Hongzhuang. Xianyuan Huan stressed the fact. Jiang Jining's beautiful face frowned. There's so many people here, and yet you still dare to contradict your father. Do you not want to be crown prince anymore? When Xianyuan Huan insisted on breaking off the engagement, Xianyuan Yutian was already displeased. Wanting it again in such an event is simply impossible. You listening to Jiang Jining's words, Xianyuan Huan couldn't help but be shocked. Taking a quick glance to see his father's sharp eyes, he could only shut his mouth obediently without any other words. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but relax. Thankfully, she didn't need to intervene for the problem to be solved. Xianyuan Huan's stupidity really made her want to pull her brains out. After, Xianyuan Huan just sat expressionless, letting his mother Jiang Jining pick out a few concubines for him. If he couldn't get Bailey Hongzhuang, then he didn't care who he got. Seeing Xianyuan Huan act obediently, Jiang Jining also felt relieved. She was only a woman, and absolutely could not let the emperor's feelings of Huan change. In the end, Xianyuan Yutian declared Fengbo's country's prime minister, Li Chengqian's daughter, Li Yuyue, as the crown prince's wife. Whether it was appearance, background, or compatibility to Xianyuan Huan, Li Yuyue was very appropriate. Li Chengqian led Li Yuyue to receive the edict. He and Bailey Jintao were of equal status, but now that his daughter was the crown princess, Bailey Jintao couldn't be compared with him in the future. Thanks to the emperor, Li Chengqian's smile was beaming, smugly sending a glance to Bailey Jintao. Bailey Jintao's expression ashened. This Li Chengqian was too hateful. With a glance, he noticed Bailey Hongzhuang sitting by Di Bei-chun. Suddenly, he had an idea. Your Majesty, today His Highness, the Crown Prince's day to choose a wife. Prince Chen also isn't young and is still unmarried, so why not take advantage of the opportunity today and lay down a marriage? His Highness, the Crown Prince, actually chose Bailey Hongzhuang out of all the girls here. That wasn't good at all for Yuuel listening. Xianyuan Yutian asked, "Is there somebody you would like to recommend?" The general household's second miss, Bailey Hongzhuang. What does the emperor think? Li Chengqian suggested. Xianyuan Yutian pondered. Dibei Chun still wasn't married, and with his appearance, it's impossible for him to leave Fengbo country. Like this, he might as well let him be happy and choose an engagement. Jiang Jinying's eyes shine brightly. The lady Li Chengqian recommended is very good. Emperor, I think that Bailey Hongzhuang and Prince Chen match each other rather well. How about you? She cannot let Xianyuan Huan's status be threatened. So long as Bailey Hongzhuang's engaged and married off, the flames in his heart would naturally die off. Xianyuan Huan's eyes widened in shock. Did his mother actually just propose to have Bailey Hongzhuang to marry Dibei Chen? Very good, I approve. Xianyuan Yutian laughed heartily. With a wave of his hand, the engagement was approved. Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen stared at each other, unable to believe that they were engaged, just like that. Bailey Jintao's face darkened. The emperor didn't even look at him once before settling the engagement. From this, he could tell that he was very unhappy over today's matter. For him, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't mean anything, since the emperor said to marry Mary. In any case, rather than having that kind of trash waste space staying at home, it's better to just marry her out. When Bailey Yuyan heard this, her eyes glittered with excitement. What did Bailey Hongzhuang get for stealing the limelight and showing off? Now, she had to marry a crippled prince. Everybody knew that although the emperor made him a prince, he actually doesn't favor him at all. Marrying him, it'd be like marrying a dead end. A blind trash with a disabled wastrel. What a perfect match. Bailey Haoshuan sneered. It looks like he didn't need to deal with Bailey Hongzhuang himself. Just by marrying Dibei Chen, she's already suffering a huge punishment. This Lady Honghaung is really pitiful. She was abandoned by the crown prince, blinded by her own sister, and now is even betrothed to Prince Chen. Although Prince Chen's looks are unrivaled, he is still, after all, a cripple. Looks like Bailey Honghaung's ruined in this life. Wifey, it looks like I'm destined to become your man. Dibei Chen raised an eyebrow, grinning at Bailey Honghaung. Although I usually don't like Li Chengqian, now I kind of do. Heimu looked at Dibei Chen astonished. When the emperor announced Dibei Chen's engagement, he had been worried, but his little lord actually didn't seem to care. Don't tell me, did he accept it? This was the little lord he had served for many, many years. Wasn't little lord uninterested in women? Heimu felt something burst in his mind. He simply couldn't accept the new changes that had just occurred. When they had first come to Fengbo country, the emperor had actually already proposed a marriage to him. But at that time, his little lord rejected it without hesitation. Bailey Hongzhuang curled her lip. She never thought such a thing would happen over only a dinner today. So this thing, there's no other way out? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and asked, "You want to defy the edict?" Dibei Chen raised a fine eyebrow, his smile utterly bewitching as he stared at Bailey Hongzhuang. No. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Someone who hasn't married marries. If I marry you, at least your face is pleasing to the eye, although poor. Her face was clear and sparkling like jade, smile like moving water. She knew clearly that no matter what she does, the emperor and empress wouldn't be happy. Even if she doesn't marry Dibei Chen, they'll still think up of some way to get rid of her. It just so happened that she also didn't have anywhere to stay. Chen Imperial Palace is pretty good. Bailey Hongzhuang accepts the edict. Under the eyes of sympathy and mockery, Bailey Hongzhuang accepted the edict, her face indifferent. Turning her body, a proud smile floating on her face. Bailey Hongzhuang's calmness far surpassed their expectations. Turning from a crown princess into a disabled prince's wife, the difference wasn't small. Everybody thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be in despair, but from start to finish, nobody saw any trace of sadness on her face. Putting away the edict, her back was straight as she calmly walked back to her seat. Sitting down, she simply chat and smile just as merrily as before, making everybody stare at each other in shock. She's only acting stubborn. Who knows when she'll ruin her own life? Bailey Yuyin sneered. She couldn't get used to seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's noble appearance, proudly walking as if nobody entered her eyes. Older sister, once the banquet's over, we'll teach her a lesson and remind her she's just trash. Jet black pupils glittering ruthlessly, Bailey Haoxuan comforted Bailey Yuyin. Whoever irritates his sister, he'll make sure they suffer. A smiling expression reappeared on Bailey Yuyin's face, her eyes growing more and more vicious. Haoxuan, this time we'll make Bailey Hongzhuang pay the price. With the old silly, naive Bailey Hongzhuang, she only liked to watch her act like an idiot. Bailey Haoxuan was the one who truly called the shots. Now that both sides tore apart her face, she won't be polite. Daring to rob His Highness, the Crown Prince's heart, she'll definitely make that trash taste life worse than death. Wifey, we'll be married soon. When do you want the betrothal gifts? Di Beichen's handsome face smiled thoughtfully as he raised an eyebrow, asking Bailey Hongzhuang. Xinyuan Yutian had long wanted to arrange a marriage for him, but he was never interested. But since the woman was Bailey Hongzhuang, he actually didn't want to refuse. Bailey Hongzhuang laughed, her eyes flashing with disdain. You, the pauper that can't even afford to give 100 gold coins. What can you gift me? Wife, your words are wrong. His eyes that were as deep as an ocean glittered with seriousness. As my Di Beichen's wife, you'll be sure to see a great sight. Bailey Hongzhuang was startled. His serious words had almost given her an illusion. But then she just laughed. Wasn't Di Beichen best at cracking jokes? While Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen were talking, Bailey Yin slowly walked up to Bailey Hongzhuang. A sarcastic smile was on her mutilated face. Dear sister, I would like to congratulate you. Seducing the crown prince won't do, but now you have to marry a country's crippled prince, haha. Bailey Yin raised her head and laughed, staring at Bailey Honghao. But you were never someone worthy of the crown prince. Now you and this cripple, on the other hand, is a perfect match indeed. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Although she didn't really care if Bailey Yin mocked her or not, purposely rubbing salt in Di Beichen's wounds is just too much. Di Beichen had no idea that he had a cursed physique and only feared his legs getting worse. For any teenager to experience such a thing, their heart would naturally feel uneasy. This was a wound to the heart. Bailey Yin, what does my marriage have to do with you? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were ice cold. Instead of thinking about me, you might as well think about how to cure your mutilated face. Ugly. The word ugly seemed to hit Bailey Yin's sore spot as she jumped up in a fluster. You don't have to bother about my face. You'll be following a cripple for your whole life. Bailey Yin's voice blazed with anger. That's right, my crippled legs are indeed not worthy to be with Bailey Hongzhuang. Di Beichen suddenly spoke, a graceful and charming smile on his handsome face. Bailey Yin was startled, staring at his peerlessly elegant face that could even shake the heavens themselves. If Di Beichen wasn't crippled, then he'd surely be an unmatched talent in his generation. Even though her heart was devoted to Xinyuan Huan, Bailey Yin had to admit that she's never seen anybody's face so perfect. When she heard Di Beichen say that he wasn't worthy of Bailey Hongzhuang, her heart felt a little strange. Di Beichen didn't actually like Bailey Hongzhuang. This wasn't what she wanted to see. But Di Beichen's next words turned Bailey Yuyin's expression unbearably ugly. Hongzhuang's engagement to Ben Wang might be a grievance, but Lady Bailey, with your face, I'm afraid people would only want to marry you to climb the ladder. Di Beichen suddenly spoke. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised, but when she heard his words, she couldn't help but burst out into laughter. Her peerlessly clear, beautiful face lit up with a radiant smile like the most beautiful flower in the imperial garden, one that nobody could move their eyes away from. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her thumb. This guy's tongue just couldn't be compared to others. Bailey Yuyin stood, stupefied. Her brain couldn't comprehend what had just happened. Usually, Dibei-chan was always polite to her. How could he suddenly say such words to her? Her face turned from purple to red, to green, to black, and then to blue. Bailey Yuyin bit her red lips, her body unable to stop shaking. If it wasn't for the banquet, then she really would have teach them a lesson. You just wait. I won't let you off. Bailey Yuyin stared until her eyes turned red. She'll make Dibei-chan regret this. Bailey Hongzhuang, if you so long return to the general's household tonight, I definitely won't let you have an easy time. At this moment, Dibei-chan's face suddenly turned cold. Bailey Yuyin, now Hongzhuang, is Ben Wang's fiancée. If you dare to touch a hair on her body, Ben Wang will make you regret it. His icy, cold voice sounded like it was from hell itself. Dibei-chan stared at Bailey Yuyin, an imposing aura suddenly erupting from him. Looking into his eyes that were as deep as the sea, Bailey Yuyin could clearly tell Dibei-chan wasn't joking. The thick killing intent made the tiny hairs on her stand up and shiver. In that moment, she knew that this crippled prince wasn't weak in the least. Why? Why does Bailey Hongzhuang always end up with the good things? Why does Dibei-chan protect her like that? Their marriage was only set today, and before that, she even seduced Xian Yuanhuan. Bailey Yuyin was puzzled. Bailey Hongzhuang rejected Xian Yuanhuan in his face, but yet he still wanted to marry her. What place could she be worse than trash? When Dibei-chan had taken action, the look in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes slowly began to change as she looked at him. He protected her. Her mind couldn't help but recall his words that he had spoken so seriously. But I do feel sorry for you. At first, when she had just met Dibei-chan, she had only thought that he was a pitiful creature, easily bullied by others. But after she saved him, Bailey Hongzhuang could only think of him as a shameless rascal. But now, as she watched Dibei-chan defend her, an indescribable feeling arose in her heart. She was touched. In her previous life, after her parents fell, she became the family head. She alone had to shoulder the whole family's burden. This life, nobody stepped in to defend her. Nobody even said a word as she was suffered under the mocking words. But now there was somebody who protected her. In such heavy murderous intent, Bailey Yuyin felt a cold chill seize her from her back to the top of her head, as if she had just fallen inside an ice cellar. Bailey Yuyin, the price of angering a crippled prince isn't something you can afford. Dibei-chan retracted his murderous aura and acted like nothing ever happened, a warm and carefree smile on his attractive face. Bailey Yuyin no longer believed that Dibei-chan was a powerless waste. The killing intent he emitted had almost stopped her from breathing. After Bailey Yuyin stiffly left, Dibei-chan's smile turned evil. Wifey, wasn't your husband's performance super brave? You must be completely charmed by me. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at Dibei-chan, speechless. This guy just completely spoiled the mood. How could her heart have been touched by such a guy just now? Surely after it passed, Bailey Hongzhuang's original temperament would come back, and it wouldn't influence her anymore. Right? That had to be so. Before long, Dibei-chan was summoned by the emperor. Feeling bored, Bailey Hongzhuang decided to take a stroll around the imperial garden. The emperor's imperial garden was truly remarkable. Many precious and exotic varieties of flowers were grown, competing as they bloomed beautifully. Some of the women were also admiring the flowers, but nobody had a good opinion of Bailey Hongzhuang, who had completely stolen the limelight and walked away. Nobody approached her. Why did you deceive me? Xian Yuanhuan appeared behind Bailey Hongzhuang, his deep, hoarse voice revealing both sadness and dissatisfaction. The sudden voice at first startled her, but when she realized who it was, a trace of impatience appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite face. I didn't specifically deceive you. I have had also deceive others, and in passing, you as well. Bailey Hongzhuang said casually. Xian Yuanhuan looked straight at Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes flashing with unhappiness. Were you always acting so submissively before, just because you hated me? Bailey Hongzhuang sneered when she heard the anger in his voice. knowing this is useful? Since His Highness, the Crown Prince, seems to enjoy strolling around the garden, I shall not disturb you. Lightly turning around, Bailey Hongzhuang walked back to the banquet. She just didn't want to exchange words with Xin Yuan Huan. But just as she took a step, Xin Yuan Huan grabbed her right hand. Quickly, give me an answer. Xin Yuan Huan's face was livid. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned and waved her right hand, voice hard. Let go of me. But Xin Yuan Huan's grip actually tightened, refusing to let her leave. If you want to go back, then answer my question. Do you really hate me that much? He just couldn't understand. Before, Bailey Hongzhuang was infatuated with him, even going as far as to commit suicide. How could she suddenly change? He wasn't willing to believe it. How could she even stage her own suicide for this? Bailey Hongzhuang stopped moving and turned to look at Xin Yuan, her voice resolute and decisive. I hate you. Xin Yuan Huan was startled. Why? Why? Bailey Hongzhuang's smile was taunting. Think of the things you've done to me. What have you done that didn't make me hate you? The former Bailey Hongzhuang's heart was hell-bent on Xin Yuan Huan, but he had never even seen her as a real person. Looking at the undisguised disgust in her eyes, Xin Yuan Huan couldn't help but flinch. Indeed, with everything he had done, it'd be strange for Bailey Hongzhuang to not hate him. I promise that I'll take good care of you. So can we be together? Xin Yuan Huan spoke seriously. Although I can't make you the crown princess, I will give you the most love. He simply couldn't forget the stunning beauty that soothed his pain away. As a prince, he could get any woman he desired, but yet the only woman he wanted was Bailey Hongzhuang. He was confident that as long as he pleaded with his father, he'd definitely be able to annul Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen's marriage. Bailey Hongzhuang stared at Xin Yuan Huan for a moment before suddenly saying, Did your brain go bad? What I've said is true. Xin Yuan Huan stressed these words. Even if what you said is true, so what? Bailey Hongzhuang sneered. Xin Yuan Huan, in my heart, you're the same as a repugnant bug. 15 years of my life have been destroyed under your shadow. It's no longer possible for us to have any sort of connection. Let go. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was decisive. No matter how much Xin Yuan Huan regretted, she wasn't willing to have any kind of tie with such a guy. Watching Bailey Hongzhuang break free of his grip and walk away, Xin Yuan Huan exclaimed, You'd rather marry that cripple than to follow me? You should know that Trash's life is grasped in the palm of my hand. Listening, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes turned cold. In my heart, you're incomparable to him. Xin Yuan Huan's angry eyes glimmered maliciously. What qualifications didn't he have compared to Dibei Chen, who could easily be trampled underfoot? Furthermore, Bailey Hongzhuang had even said he was incomparable to that Trash. Impossible. Covering the distance in a twinkle of the eye, he rushed towards Bailey Hongzhuang. Without saying a thing, he moved forward to kiss her. The women I fancy, I absolutely will not allow others to get their hands on them. Even Bailey Hongzhuang never expected Xin Yuan Huan to do such a crazy thing. In that moment, her right hand suddenly lifted, a loud slap greeting his face. Pa! Xin Yuan Huan clutched his face and looked angrily at Bailey Hongzhuang. You dare to hit me? Doing such a thing, you should have been prepared. Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite face was pale as her voice grew more and more cold. Xin Yuan Huan, I look down on you. Her voice fell, and Bailey Hongzhuang glared at Xin Yuan Huan icily before immediately returning to the banquet. Xin Yuan Huan's actions were enough to make her feel nauseous. This Xin Yuan Huan is just too shameless, Little Black muttered. He even tried to forcibly kiss you. What a pervert. Perhaps Xin Yuan Huan is regretting that very, very much now, huh? Little White smiled proudly. Watching Xin Yuan Huan eat defeat from their hands made his mood turn incredibly refreshed. Before long, she arrived back at her seat. Dibei Chen had also already came back. Wifey, that slap wasn't light. Dibei Chen laughed lightly. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flickered with light. You saw? I couldn't find you when I came back, so I had Hey Moo push me around and then saw a scene I shouldn't have seen. No matter what, I'm still your fiancé. when I'm encountering something like that? Shouldn't you have come forward? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. I knew that wife would teach him a lesson. Dibei Chun shrugged his shoulders, his lips lined with bewitching charm as they curved into a confident smile. With Bailey Hongzhuang's temper, she definitely wouldn't give Xianyuan Huan even the slightest chance. Plus, he also wanted to see how she would deal with the situation. Sure enough, without my help, you've solved the problem. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at his face, full of smiles, and couldn't help but wonder. This guy couldn't have heard her say Xianyuan was incomparable to him. Could he have? But Dibei Chun never said anything about it, and only make a few jokes, casting away the doubts in her heart. The evening banquet ended. She chose not to return with Bailey Jintao and the others, but instead with Dibei Chun. Wifey, how about you stay in Qin Palace from now? Dibei Chun blinked, his voice full of smiles. Bailey Hongzhuang tossed a glance at him, not interested. Finished speaking, she turned back and ignored him, directly going back to the general's household. This time, she only wanted to pack her things together. There was no more meaning in continuing to stay at the general's household. She didn't know if Bailey Yuyin or any other crazed fools would destroy her mother's possessions, so she has to take them with her. Dibei Chun watched Bailey Hongzhuang's figure disappear off into the distance, a trace of seriousness present on his handsome face. This woman was really different. When Bailey Jintao and the others returned, they quickly asked somebody if Bailey Hongzhuang may have returned. When they received a positive answer, they all rushed to her elegant daylily pavilion. No matter what, they must make Bailey Hongzhuang confess today. With Little Black's and Little White's help, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly packed up Qin Yayin's belongings. Her mother had been passed away for many years now, and there weren't much but some jewelry. But in the jewelry, Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised to find a booklet, Qin Yayin's diary. Casually opening a few pages, Bailey Hongzhuang felt that it was the most meaningful item within the piles of jewelry. Bailey Hongzhuang stuffed the diary inside her yin-yang pouch before walking towards the general household's gate. Before she even reached the front gates, she could hear Bailey Jintao roar loudly. Bailey Hongzhuang, you unfilial daughter, get over here. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her brows a little, the corners of her mouth widening into a thoughtful smile. Did this old man still think she was like the former Bailey Hongzhuang? Slowly walking through the hall, Bailey Hongzhuang saw Bailey Jintao, Su Wanjing, Bailey Yuyin, and Bailey Haoshuan standing together, their faces all dark and gloomy. When were your eyes healed? Bailey Jintao's voice sunk. When the emperor had asked him, he was simply speechless. He must get the answer and report it to the emperor tomorrow. Forgot. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was light. Bailey Jintao's anger hit the roof. Bailey Honghao, do you know whom you're talking to? Knows General Bailey Jintao. Even though Bailey Jintao's face was absolutely livid, hers was as calm as ever. Noticing the indifference on her face, Bailey Jintao grew even more furious, abruptly raising his palm to deliver a slap. It looks like he would need to teach her a lesson before she can confess. Bailey Yuyin's eyes glimmered with excitement. Earlier at the banquet, Bailey Hongzhuang was acting with such arrogance, but now, that same trash is getting taught a lesson for being so impetuous. Su Wanjing stood behind Bailey Jintao, the corners of her mouth unable to help but curve up into a smile. Daring to make their family unhappy, Bailey Hongzhuang deserved to be punished. Feeling the swift and fierce wind from the oncoming palm, a ruthless gleam appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Her indifferent face turned hard. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang didn't hesitate to meet the blow. Nobody had thought that she would actually block it, her palm easily meeting Bailey Jintao's. Bailey Jintao was also stunned. He had only wanted to teach the girl a lesson, make her lie in bed for a few days. But he never expected that she would actually block it. That hand was most likely already crippled. Bailey Hongzhuang is still Prince Chen's fiancée. If he directly abandoned Bailey Honghao due to her hand, it's sure to bring gossip. But what happened next was even more unimaginable. Everybody in the hall was absolutely shocked, because even after blocking Bailey Jintao's hit, Bailey Honghao was completely unharmed. This, Bailey Jintao looked at her, stunned. Just now, he had clearly felt power seep out of Bailey Honghaung's hand. What happened? Bailey Yuyin looked quizzically at Bailey Jintao. She didn't understand why he had such a shocked expression on his face. How could Bailey Honghaung block father's hit? Bailey Haoxuan's eyes flashed with confusion. Although father had held back, it still wasn't a power Bailey Honghaung could compete with. When did you start cultivating? Bailey Jintao asked calmly. After venting, he was far calmer than before. Today's Bailey Hongzhuang was really too strange, changing from meek trash into a stunning beauty. Not only did she become the godly doctor praised by all, but could even cultivate with her trash physique. This transformation was just too unthinkable. Hearing his words, Bailey Yuyin couldn't help but be shocked, looking at Bailey Hongzhuang incredulously. Since the age of 5, Bailey Honghaung was labeled as trash due to her useless physique that was unable to cultivate. But suddenly, now they're told that she could even cultivate? What was even more unfathomable was that she didn't even have a single merit law scripture. Without it, how could somebody cultivate? Bailey Yuyin and Bailey Haoxuan glanced at each other, doubtful. So all along, it wasn't them playing Bailey Hongzhuang, but her playing them? What does my cultivation have to do with you? Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were full of sarcasm. Since the beginning to end, this so-called father had never cared a thing for her. Even now that she revealed her strength, all she got was Bailey Jintao's rage. I told you to answer my words, not ask me a question. Bailey Jintao's voice grew lower and lower, a clear threat underlying his tone. You asked me, and I must answer. What kind of rule is this? Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was sarcastic. For 15 years, you've never cared for my life and death anyways, so now, you don't have anything to do with me. When were my eyes cured? Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Ha! Should you have bothered to send a doctor to examine me? Wouldn't you already know? You still dare to speak like that? Bailey Jintao was livid with anger. He was the master of the general's household with absolute dignity. Who dared to speak with him like this? Bailey Jintao, you never fulfilled the role as my father, so why should I act out my role as your daughter? Between us, nobody owes anything. Bailey Honghaung's words were loud and clear. From as early as when Bailey Jintao chose to leave for the palace without her to save their family's face, she had already cut off all ties in her heart. If you have the ability, then get out of the general's household. I, Bailey Jintao, never had such a daughter. Bailey Jintao shouted angrily. Bailey Honghaung lifted her face, indifferent. That was my intention. From now on, I have no relationships to the general's household. Her voice fell. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around to walk towards the general's household gates without hesitation. When she appeared outside, she knew that now she was no longer one of the general household's people. Bailey Jintao never thought that Bailey Honghaung would actually leave. For a long time, he stood staring at her back. He couldn't say anything. The moment Bailey Honghaung stepped past the general household's gates, an unspeakable loneliness washed over her. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the words General Household inscribed on the plaque. She had lived here for 15 years, but it was never her home, and the people inside were never her family. Perhaps when she transmigrated, she was destined for a life of loneliness. The forlorn look in her eyes gradually disappeared, replaced by resolute firmness. To have no cares, it might even be a good thing. From here on, she will only live for herself. But then, she turned around to see He Mu standing not so far away from the general household's gates. When He Mu saw Bailey Honghaung walk out, he smiled. Sure enough, the prince's words were correct. He said Lady Bailey would definitely leave, and you really did leave. Bailey Honghaung was somewhat startled. How could you be here? Prince said that since you suddenly left the general household, there would be a lot of things you haven't prepared for, and specifically asked me to bring you some supplies. Yin-yang pouch, those small bags that have another dimensional space inside, has been changed to Heaven and Earth pouch, accepting the Heaven and Earth pouch from He Mu. Bailey Honghound quickly took a look to see quilts and other such supplies readily available. A burst of warmth appeared in her heart. What else did he say? Bailey Honghound's voice was gentle. In this kind of situation, in this kind of time, there were still people that only thought of themselves. Prince also said that Godly Doctor Square wasn't a place suitable for somebody to live in. If Lady Bailey isn't willing to live at Shun Imperial Palace, then Prince said there's another courtyard that you can live in. Listening, a trace of surprise fluttered by Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. She never heard that Dibei Chun had more than one residence in the Imperial City before. Noticing Bailey Honghound's surprise, He Mu took the initiative to explain. Prince personally bought the other courtyard and rarely goes there, so almost nobody knows. Bailey Honghound thought and suddenly realized Dibei Chun was doing this for the sake of her reputation. Since she and the general households broke off all ties, the news wouldn't be pleasant to hear, not to mention that she was just recently engaged. If there was another mistake, then she was afraid that the emperor would find her unbearable and send some people to deal with her. Godly Doctor Square was too conspicuous. If she lived in Godly Doctor Square, it wouldn't be long before everybody would find out, which was why Dibei Chun let her stay somewhere else. If Lady Bailey doesn't mind, shall I escort you to the courtyard now? He Mu's eyes revealed a hint of joy. His little lord had never regarded women rudely, but always treated Bailey Honghound a little specially. If the two could really become a couple, then he would be happy for his lord from the bottom of his heart. Then I'll be troubling you. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was gentle, her eyes clear and bright. Dibei Chen's other residence wasn't too far from the palace, not noisy but quiet, and was actually a very good place. Bright Jingli Garden. With just a step into Jingli Garden, Bailey Hongzhuang could easily smell the peach blossoms, and a large expanse of pink peach trees appeared in her sight. Her mouth stretched into a beautiful, clear smile. As she walked through the peach trees, a breeze blew, scattering petals as they fell. From afar, she looked just like a peach blossom fairy. As she walked, a pale golden figure emerged in her vision. The moonlight was fascinating. Hazy droplets of light shined upon Dibei Chen's body, making him look even more beautiful and elegant. You arrived. Those two simple words revealed confidence and certainty, as if he had expected for Bailey Hongzhuang would choose to come here. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Moonlight, peach blossom trees, a stone table, and wine. You really know how to enjoy life. That's wrong. Dibei Chen shook his head. Moonlight, peach blossom trees, a beauty, wine, it's all meant to be enjoyed. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't care about Dibei Chen's teasing and directly sat opposite to him. Such beautiful scenery on such a beautiful day. It'd be a waste not to enjoy a small drink. What do you think? Dibei Chun picked up the flask of wine and handed it to Bailey Hongzhuang. She accepted it, staring deeply at Dibei Chun. She wondered if this was because he knew of her loneliness. If that was the case, then Dibei Chun really was determined. In this night of farewell to the past, she only wanted to indulge just this once. They chatted as they drank their wine. Nobody talked about the past, only teasing each other and randomly. It continued until Bailey Hongzhuang laid passed out on the table. Dibei Chen looked at her, her cheeks a beautiful drunken red. He smiled a smile as bright as the sun. If you ever feel lonely again, at least I'll still be with you. Dibei Chen's voice was gentle. The soft light shining in his eyes was enough to make any woman fall intoxicated. After he tucked Bailey Honghound in bed and covered her with a quilt, Dibei Chun left Jingli Garden. Prince, shall I get some girls as attendants for Lady Bailey? Dibei Chun waved his hand. With her temper, an attendant would only trouble her. He Mu pondered. Indeed, that did seem like Bailey Honghound style. When Bailey Honghound woke up the next day, it was already past noon. She went outside. When she saw the multitudes of peach blossoms covering the sky, creating a world of pink, her mood unconsciously grew better. Only after seeing the peach blossom forest did she understand just why Dibei Chun bought this courtyard. The peach trees brought a certain benefit to Dibei Chen's body. It slowed down the spread of his paralysis. Godly Doctor Square. When Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at Godly Doctor Square, Du Tianxua and Dong Sairu were both very worried for her. Lady Bailey, are you all right? Under Dong Sairu's unceasing hints, Du Tianxua summoned his courage to ask. Dong Sairu's voice followed. Lady Bailey, you have to look at the bright side. Even though Prince Chen's legs are crippled, I've heard everything else was pretty good. It was a bright day today. The news that Hong Haon was actually the general household's second miss, Bailey Hongzhuang, was scattered throughout the city streets. Only until everybody was talking about it, confirmed by the royal courtier and the lady herself, did they finally believe it. The news was just so stunning. The useless trash miss that had not a single merit to speak of, to the miss whose medicinal skills could be considered as godly. But these two women whose differences could be said to be like heaven and earth were actually the same person after they learned Bailey Honghao's true identity. The two men didn't have enough time to be happy when they heard of her sudden engagement. Bailey Honghao, Prince Chun, the biggest joke and the second biggest joke of the imperial city were engaged into an even bigger joke. Looking at the two's somewhat anxious faces, Bailey Honghao smiled. Don't worry about me. I don't think this is a bad thing. Hearing her words, Du Shuatian and Dong Sairu were both stunned, shocked as they looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. They even thought that they heard it wrong. But when they saw her indifferent, free, and smiling face, they knew that they hadn't misunderstood. Lady Bailey, you really aren't sad? Dong Sairu's voice sounded incredulous. Falling from a crown princess into a waste princess, how could she calm down so easily? What's so sad about it? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and asked, Dibei Chun is far more handsome than Xian Yuan Huan. So why can't I prefer the better-looking one? Well, that's true. Noticing the patients, Bailey Hongzhuang directly went ahead and began by taking their pulses before diagnosing and treat them. After the 10 patients were treated, she started to prepare. Dong Sairu looked at Bailey Hongzhuang's back and couldn't help but murmur. Handsomeness is indeed handsome, but that wasn't the point. Under the sunset's glow, the clouds seemed to shine in the maroon sky, and even the ground under the crowd's feet seemed to have caught a red tint. 10,000 Medicine Lane. When Ji Wenbin saw Bailey Hongzhuang come, a trace of unhappiness appeared on his face. How might have Lady Bailey made the time to come here? Check back later. Big Brother Ji, were you mad at me? A flattering smile bloomed on Bailey Hongzhuang's face as she walked over to face Ji Wenbin. Since she's come here, the first person to treat her with kindness was Ji Wenbin. She didn't want to let such a thing to ruin their relationship. Those who sent help in one's hour of need must always be treated seriously. How could I dare be mad at you? Ji Wenbin's cold voice revealed a trace of dissatisfaction. Big Brother Ji, Bailey Honghaon called out. You should also know that I was in a special situation at that time. I was grounded by the general. So if I used my real name, it'd become very disadvantageous. I could only use an alias. Apart from this, I've never done anything to deceive you. Ji Wenbin still didn't say anything. When he had heard the news earlier today, he had nearly jumped out of his skin in shock. He never thought the friend he was so proud of would have actually lied to him. Since Big Brother Ji doesn't want to see me, I'll leave first. Bailey Honghao's face turned sad and lonely as she turned to walk toward the doors. But in her heart, she secretly counted. 3, 2, 1. Wait. Ji Wenbin's voice rang out as he sighed helplessly. I know your situation was forced. When he had first found out about Bailey Honghao's lies, he was terribly angry. But then when he calmed down and thought about it, he felt that she really did have her own difficulties. Then as he listened to her words, his resentment melted away, leaving only worry and concern for Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Honghao, smiled happily. I knew Big Brother Ji was highly principled and could understand my plight. Ji Wenbin couldn't be as happy as Bailey Honghao. I heard you and Prince Chun would be married in a month's time. Is this the truth? It's true. Why did the Emperor grant the marriage so abruptly? Because His Majesty was unhappy with me. Bailey Honghang smiled. She was unflattering in the emperor's eyes, so it was only reasonable to marry her off to Di Beichun. So then, are you really willing to marry Di Beichun? Other people might not know, but Ji Wenbin knew clearly that Bailey Honghang and Di Beichun were both very familiar with each other. Before, he had seen Di Beichun several times in Godly Doctor Square. Was it him who asked the emperor for the engagement? I think Di Beichun isn't bad. Bailey Hongzhuang laughed lightly. At least, a lot more reliable than Xin Yuanhuan. Really decided? Even if Ji Wenbin decided to speak more useless words, what could he do? After all, this was the emperor who laid down the decree. But he still couldn't help but ask. He wanted to make sure Bailey Hongzhuang didn't regret her decision. Decided. Bailey Honghang's voice was quiet, but firm. Bailey Hongzhuang bought a large pile of herbs in 10,000 Medicine Lane. Since opening Godly Doctor Square, her business was thriving, and she no longer had to calculate and confirm which herb she needed to get. Watching Bailey Honghang buy so many herbs at once, Ji Wenbin was puzzled. Honghang, what are you doing with so many herbs? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. It's a secret. I have some stuff to do. Ji Wenbin couldn't help but laugh, dumbfounded. Bailey Hongzhuang was intentionally acting mysterious, provoking his curiosity. He no longer continued to ask. Putting all the medicine into the heaven and earth bags, Bailey Hongzhuang left for Heavenly Jewel Pavilion. Heavenly Jewel Pavilion was the largest shop in the Imperial City for all things cultivation. Its size was incomparable to others. This was a place only the rich could go. Heavenly Jewel Pavilion. It has anything and everything a cultivator seeks. Even if they didn't at the time, as long as you paid, they would certainly help you as soon as possible. This was the reason for Heavenly Jewel Pavilion's fame. Master, what do you want to buy? Little Black asked curiously. Today, his master was simply bleeding money. With that fist-sized sack of gold, she could have bought so much food and let them eat happily. Pill furnace. Her eyes gleamed brightly. Today, she came here to buy a pill furnace. Before, she lacked funds and could only wait. But now that she has the money, she can finally buy her pill furnace. Just by entering Heavenly Jewel Pavilion, Bailey Honghang could understand how it was worthy of the people's praise. Just the layout alone was enough to make a person's eyes light up. Even in the night, Heavenly Jewel Pavilion was as bright as day. All the pills, precious herbs, and weapons were displayed with a price tag, sorted out by rank and level, letting its visitors find the items they needed as soon as possible. The waiters and waitresses were all handsome men and beautiful women with gentle, polite smiles, naturally making one happy. Noticing Bailey Honghang, a waitress immediately came over and smiled. Miss, what might you've come to buy here today? A pill furnace, do you have it? She took a look around and had only seen pills, herbs, weapons, etc., but never once seen a pill furnace. Hearing Bailey Honghang wanted to buy a pill furnace, a touch of surprise appeared in the waitress's eyes before they returned to their usual calmness. Although Heavenly Jewel Pavilion did indeed sell pill furnaces, the people who bought them were very little. After all, pill masters were just too rare. Even in the Imperial City, there were only a few. Was this surprisingly young girl in front of her a pill master? Pill furnaces are on the second floor. Miss, please follow me. The waitress bowed and held out her hand, gesturing for Bailey Hongzhuang to follow her to the second floor. Bailey Honghang nodded slightly. As long as she could buy the pill furnace, she was happy. But when Bailey Honghang arrived at the second floor, she saw a familiar, hateful figure. Truly, enemies are on a narrow road. Bailey Yuyin was accompanying Du Hanyue to buy a pill furnace. Du Hanyue was an apprentice pill master. Although her own concoction skills were insufficient, pill master Yin Qingfeng's skills were very well known. The hunting feast was right around the corner. She and Bailey Haoshuan needed to show a good performance, so an appropriate pill was very important. Only after flattering Du Hanyue did she get him to promise to beg his master, Yin Qingfeng, to refine the siblings some pills. But this Du Hanyue was also ruthless and even wanted them to buy him a pill furnace. This was an item expensive like no other, but under their current circumstances, the two siblings could only clench their teeth and bleed money. Seeing Bailey Honghoung appear, Bailey Yuyin's face turned disdainful. You actually dare to enter Heavenly Jewel Pavilion? You can enter, so why can't I enter? Bailey Hongzhuang's words were sarcastic. Really, every time this girl sees her, she keeps on looking for trouble with her. Only now did Bailey Yuyin remember that Bailey Honghoung wasn't the same anymore. Just by opening Godly Doctor Square alone, her income was far higher than her own. Although she could eat and drink well in the general's household, and the monthly allowance of silver coins were many, the expenses were also large, so the real amount of money in her hands are actually rather little. Too lazy to bother with Bailey Yuyin's nonsense, Bailey Honghoung directly walked to the pill furnace shelves. "Miss, how much might you want to spend for the pill furnace?" The waitress asked politely. Although she didn't know this girl's identity, just by looking at her clothing and demeanor, she could tell that she wasn't anyone ordinary and acted even more humble. Bailey Yuyin was just thinking about how to quickly get 70,000 gold coins when she heard what the waitress told Bailey Honghoung, and she couldn't help but laugh. Did I hear you right? You wanted to buy a pill furnace? What if I buy a pill furnace? You're not a pill master. What do you want to do with it? Use it as a stove and roast dinner on it. Bailey Yuyin laughed. Du Hanyue originally made her pretty unhappy, but seeing Bailey Honghoung act so overconfident, her mood grew fantastic. But Bailey Honghoung just glanced at her coldly, as if she was looking an idiot. "I want this pill furnace." Bailey Hongzhuang pointed at the silver pill furnace. Bailey Yuyin's smile instantly stiffened, the air around her turning angry. "Bailey Honghoung, are you provoking me?" Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't a pill master and naturally didn't need to buy a pill furnace. In her view, Bailey Hongzhuang heard her discussion with Du Hanyue and deliberately chose to buy a pill furnace after listening. And now, she even chose the pill furnace that Du Hanyue fancied. If this wasn't to provoke her, then what was? Du Hanyue also tensed. This was the pill furnace she had always longed for. Fortunately, very few people in the Imperial City bought pill furnaces, and the silver pill furnace has been sitting in Heavenly Jewel Pavilion for months untouched. But now this girl wants to buy it? Bailey Hongzhuang lazily glanced at Bailey Yuyin, stressing every word slowly. "You think too much. I'm telling you, I'm not interested in you at all." She didn't care about her. She wasn't even interested in provoking her. "Bailey Yuyin," Du Hanyue shouted for her hastily. "She can't let anyone else buy this pill furnace." Bailey Yuyin immediately understood and rushed to the waitress. "We selected this pill furnace first, so you can't sell it to her." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and lifted up her chin, looking at Bailey Yuyin, "Then buy it." When her voice fell, Bailey Yuyin's face froze. Right now, she didn't have enough money. "Since you can't afford it, I should be able to buy it now." Bailey Hongzhuang turned to the waitress and asked her, "Am I right?" The waitress's face was embarrassed as she glanced at Bailey Yuyin, but still nodded. "Right. You can't buy it now? Don't say I didn't give you a chance." Bailey Hongzhuang drawled loudly. "Can you wait a few moments for me to go back and withdraw some more money?" Bailey Yuyin gritted her teeth. 200,000 gold coins were far more than she had expected, but this time, she absolutely could not let Bailey Hongzhuang buy the pill furnace. Miss can pay a mortgage of 100,000 gold coins, and if Miss doesn't come back, then the gold coins will not be returned," said the waitress. Bailey Yuyin's face turned green. She didn't even know if her father would give her 70,000 if she were to go back and ask. For the general's household as a whole, 200,000 gold coins wasn't at all a small figure. Plus, they still needed to pay Yun Qingfeng a commission fee. The cost is too high. Seeing Bailey Yuyin so hesitant, the waitress couldn't help but suggest, "Miss, these two slightly cheaper furnaces are also very good. Try and consider it." Bailey Yuyin looked at Du Hanyue, who was still stubborn with her choice. That pill furnace was the only one she wanted. "Help me wrap it up." Bailey Hongzhuang raised her hand. She didn't want to continue wasting time here. Judging by Bailey Yuyin's attitude, she couldn't afford it. The waitress took the pill furnace off the shelf, and Bailey Yuyin watched as it disappeared off the second floor. Her hands were clenched tight enough to bleed. Bailey Hongzhuang was once an existence that could be stepped under the sole of her foot. But now, she could prance high and mighty right in front of her. In Heavenly Jewel Pavilion's first floor, Bailey Hongzhuang happily paid 200,000 gold coins before stoving the furnace into her heaven and earth pouch. The waitress watched as the young Bailey Hongzhuang easily pulled out 200,000 gold coins. Although she didn't say anything, her eyes held a bit of marvel. Who was Bailey Yuyin? She was very clear. To be even able to ridicule the eldest miss of the general household, this girl wasn't simple. The waitress was rather new to the Imperial City. If she had lived in the Imperial City longer, then she would have known that the woman in front of her was godly Dr. Square Soul Doctor, the general household's second miss, Bailey Hongzhuang. It's downright satisfying seeing that look on that damn woman, Bailey Yuyin's face. Little Black's face was filled with hard-to-conceal excitement. Watching this, I don't even feel the need to eat anymore. You said it yourself. No need for you to eat tonight, then. Bailey Hongzhuang laughed. Little Black's face broke down. Master, am I not happy for you? How could you have the heart to do this to me? Little White smiled wisely. Naturally, if you sin, you won't get rewarded. Since I can't eat, do you really think you still can? Little Black said threateningly. Little White was stunned, quickly supporting. Master, Little Black's words were for your happiness. You can't take his food. Listening as the duo bombarded her, as they chattered incessantly for food, Bailey Hongzhuang laughed quietly. Okay, today you two will definitely get a big dinner tonight. Long live Master. When Bailey Hongzhuang came back to Jingli Garden, Dibei Chen was still sitting on the table. When he saw her come back, his handsome face revealed a smile. It looks like you're very busy today, only coming back now. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Naturally. I'm not like you, who has nothing to do. Dibei Chen wasn't offended. Have you eaten dinner? I'll ask the chefs to prepare something. I'll try the skills of a master chefs. Dibei Chen clapped his hands, and a servant instantly started to serve the food and wine. Looking at the table full of rich wine and plentiful foods, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly felt like her head was a little wet. She looked up. Could it be raining? The bright moon still hung in the sky, without the slightest sign of rain. With a start, she suddenly realized it was the two fluffballs' drool. Master, so much yummy food, Little Black exclaimed. The light in Bailey Hongzhuang's pupils suddenly sank, a threatening tone appearing in her voice. If you two dare to drool on my head, do you believe that I'll let you spend the next few days hungry? The fluffballs were at first startled, but then quickly covered their mouths, no longer daring to let a drop of drool spill out. Dibei Chen watched as Bailey Hongzhuang's expressions changed constantly, a touch of surprise emerging in his ocean-like pupils. What are you doing? Nothing. Bailey Hongzhuang responded. I just thought the chef's food is good. Her belly full of food and liquor, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, satisfied. Since coming here, this was the first time she ate such delicious food and wine. Nothing needed to be said about the general's household's meals, and she rarely went to restaurants. Even when she did, the restaurant couldn't be compared to today's feast. It's late, have an early rest. Dibei Chen's smile was warm with alcohol as he got up, preparing to leave Jingli Garden and return to his palace. Wait a moment. Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly shouted at Dibei Chen. Dibei Chen looked at Bailey Hongzhuang confused. What? Tonight, sleep here at Jingli Garden. Hearing her words, Heimu couldn't help but choke. He never expected for Bailey Hongzhuang to actually be so aggressive. Although Little Lord and Bailey Hongzhuang were getting married in less than a month, in the end, they still aren't married yet. Dibei Chen played bashful. Wifey, if you're so forward, your hubby will be embarrassed. But if wifey wishes so, then I'm willing. Bailey Hongzhuang's mouth twitched. This guy's face keeps on changing. She didn't even finish her words, and he already thought so far. You think too much. Bailey Hongzhuang spoke slowly. I didn't mean anything else. Bei Chen's lips hooked up into an understanding smile. I know wifey didn't mean anything else. Only that meaning, I understand. The words he spoke were very ambiguous. What do you understand? Bailey Honghang raised her voice. I'm just trying to help cure your legs. Hearing her words, waves appeared in Bei Chen's ocean-like eyes before they quickly returned to their previous teasing appearance. Actually, now I think that staying here to chat about what's uncooked is actually a pretty good idea. TL note. Uncooked is referring to making Hongzhuang cooked, aka pregnant. If you don't want to be cured, then forget it. No. If wifey can help her hubby, it's naturally the best. Bei Chen added hastily. He smiled innocently, his whole face like a blooming flower. It was an indescribably bewitching scene. Mu sighed with relief. Bailey Honghang wasn't that aggressive after all. But when he heard that Bailey Honghang wanted to cure his little lord's leg disease, his heart couldn't help but pound with excitement. His little lord's legs had already been crippled for 3 whole years. Many people had already lost hope in his lord, but he had always believed that one day his little lord would be able to stand up on his own 2 feet. Bailey Honghang's face turned serious as she began to treat Bei Chen. Carefully confirming the degree of paralysis in Bei Chen's legs, Bailey Hongzhuang asked, "Can you feel the paralysis developing upwards in your body?" Bei Chen nodded slightly. "There's some." Looking at his placid, handsome face, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but admire. This guy was only a teenager, continuing to fight in the face of complete paralysis rather than giving up, and continuing to maintain such elegance. It simply wasn't something a normal person could do. Just by this feature, she knew Bei Chen's heart was firm. "Wife, do you really know what I have?" Bei Chen inquired. It wasn't that he didn't believe Bailey Honghang, but he had already visited many doctors, and not one has ever even heard of his illness. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow. "Would I lie to you?" Since Bei Chen protected her from Bailey Haoxuan, not allowing even a drop to spill on her, her heart was already set on helping him. When she was lonely, there was only Bei Chen who reached out to her. "Lady Bailey, in the end, what happened to my lord? He was poisoned, right?" Mu couldn't help but ask. He really wanted to know how his awe-inspiring lord's legs suddenly became crippled and fell down from the altar. If it was purposefully done, he won't let him off. "You've investigated for so long, but you still haven't found anything, right?" Mu nodded, embarrassed. He had always been ashamed of this. "Well, there's no need to look any longer. This isn't due to poisoning." Feng Bo's godly doctor said that as well, but also didn't know what it was. Bei Chen's face still had a smile. Even though he was talking about such a serious problem, his appearance was as carefree as ever. "This is because of your physique," Bailey Hongzhuang explained. "It's good that the godly doctor was vigilant and could slow down the paralysis. Otherwise, it would have been incurable." Physique, Bei Chen pondered. Although he had thought of many possibilities, he never thought it'd be due to this. A physique complication was just too rare. Everybody knew about physiques, and his own constitution wasn't very special. "Have you heard about the cursed physique?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked as she took Bei Chen's pulse. "Out of all the physiques I know, I've never heard of a cursed physique." He knew almost all of the continent's rare physiques, but still has never heard of such a constitution. Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't surprised. The cursed physique is incredibly rare, so it's only natural you've never heard of it. Your cultivation speed used to be very fast, far surpassing an ordinary cultivator's. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled quietly. Then your body began to grow paralyzed, starting from your toes and spreading outwards little by little. Now, your cultivation speed is also beginning to slow down. The expression in Bei Chen's eyes constantly changed, his heart pounding with shock. He had never told anyone about his cultivation slowing down. Even Feng Bo's godly doctor didn't know. Bailey Hongzhuang was sure of everything as soon as she took his pulse. Could his body really be a cursed physique? Mu was shocked. Lady Bailey was indeed godly. Her reputation of a godly doctor was truly well-deserved. "Can you change my physique?" A surge of darkness swirled under the brightness in Bei Chen's eyes. Even though his anxiety was well hidden, Bailey Hongzhuang still caught it. The smile on her lips grew softer. Of course I can. When the words burst out, Bei Chen's deep, ocean-like eyes seemed to bloom with boundless splendor. After 3 years, there was finally hope. With her gentle smile, the tension in his ice-cold heart seemed to melt away. However, the process is very difficult. Enduring it won't be easy. Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was low and serious. If you can't persevere, then you'll die. If you cannot stand the pain, then it'd be better to just live your life suppressed and crippled. Otherwise, if you were to give up in the middle of changing your physique, it'd be the real fall. Bei Chen was calm. He didn't bat an eyelid, even when speaking of death, the firm look in his eyes never wavering. Wife, don't worry. This little pain won't beat your husband. Bei Chen's voice was low and deep. Although his face was still the same one she had always teased, the look in his eyes was serious. The depths of his eyes reflected Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the determination in those 2 eyes. Now that you've chosen, I'll help you to the end. By helping me change my constitution, how would you be impacted? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Nothing, just more work. Hearing her words, although Bailey Hongzhuang said it was simple, Bei Chen knew it couldn't only be that. Since the process to change his physique was so difficult that he may even die, then Bailey Hongzhuang would also have to work extraordinarily hard. Bailey Hongzhuang took out her bag of needles from the heaven-earth pouch. Before she can change his constitution, the paralysis in the legs must be treated first. Word spoken, Bailey Hongzhuang prepared for Bei Chen's acupuncture when suddenly he grabbed her hand that was about to start. Raising her head a little, Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Bei Chen quizzically. She didn't know why he had just clutched her hand. Bei Chen carefully inspected that beautiful and exquisite face, his deep voice slightly hoarse as he asked, "Why are you helping me?" "Why?" They've only known each other for a short time. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even know who he was, so why was she helping him? Staring into those eyes that were as deep as the sea, a little smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips. "When you helped me, did you have a reason?" "That's different." Bei Chen raised his voice a little. "Aren't you worried that I'll betray you after you cure my legs?" The things he did were just little things anybody would do, but what Bailey Hongzhuang's doing is far beyond that. "Is that important?" Bailey Hongzhuang asked back. Bei Chen was stunned, never expecting for her to give such an answer. "How isn't this important? When you asked me this, I knew you didn't help me for anything but to help me." The smile on Bailey Hongzhuang's face grew even gentler. "Besides, even if you were to act against me because of this, I wouldn't care. The decisions she chose, she has never regretted." Although she didn't know Bei Chen's true identity, although she didn't know why Bei Chen was trying to get close to her, she still believed that Bei Chen's actions were sincere. Why? Maybe it was because, for once, there was someone standing in front of her. Maybe because it was the first time somebody could understand her sadness. Maybe it was because her heart was beating for him. Because of this, it was enough. Bei Chen suddenly found there was no way to see through Bailey Hongzhuang. Even though he could never understand how her medicinal skills were developed. From the time they've spent together, he had felt Bailey Hongzhuang was very simple. But at this moment, it was like he suddenly didn't know her anymore. How could the problems others cared about so much, in her eyes, be seen with such unimportance? "Why don't you care?" "Because you helped me, didn't you?" Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. If before she was suspicious of Bei Chen, now she felt that he was truly a good person. Even though he was usually complicated and wise, his thoughts were clear and simple, and actually, he was very kind. Gazing at the sweet, smiling face before him, for the first time, Bei Chen thought this world was truly complicated. "If there isn't a problem, can I start?" Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow as she asked. "First, I have to deal with the paralysis in your legs. Changing your physique will need some rare ingredients. But trust that after the physique is changed, your cultivation speed and talent will increase by leaps and bounds. Don't worry." Bei Chen nodded. He knew Bailey Hongzhuang was comforting him. Silver needles were inserted into the acupuncture points in his leg. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were careful. Each time, the needles were swift and accurate. As early as when Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen's conversation started, Mu had already retreated to the sidelines. If he were to remain there, he'd be nothing but an eyesore. It was better to leave Lady Bailey and his little lord alone so they could get along better. The peach blossom forest was quiet and peaceful, leaving only the silhouettes of a slender, white-robed figure and a tall, pale, golden-robed figure. The woman sat on the man's legs as he gazed at her. The peach blossoms blew, fragrant. Their silhouettes were hazy, creating a dream-like scene. Once all the needles were accurately inserted into the acupuncture points, Bailey Hongzhuang spoke up. The next part is going to be painful. If you can't hold on, don't be afraid to yell. Dibei Chen nodded slightly. I'll be okay. Let's start. Hearing his words, Bailey Hongzhuang's inner chi burst out. Her right hand waved a silver needle, causing all the acupuncture needles began to tremble. Dibei Chen could feel a numb tingle spreading through his legs, as if countless insects were climbing it, the itchiness almost unbearable. However, a trace of joy appeared in his dark eyes. For 3 years, there was never any feeling in his legs, but now he could sense something. The itchiness gradually turned into pain, like a million needles were stabbing his legs all at once. It was one of the most painful things anyone could experience. Dibei Chen endured the ferocious pain in his legs. On the surface, his expression was very normal without a single sign of pain. Only the big beads of sweat that emerged on his forehead and his slightly wrinkled brow. Could a person have a hint of the pain he felt? Watching Dibei Chen, a thread of admiration appeared in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Dibei Chen's mind was truly strong. This pain that ordinary men simply couldn't withstand, he was able to face without even a change in his expression. As Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Dibei Chen also looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Droplets of sweat were emerging from Bailey Hongzhuang's forehead, her exquisite face pale. This treatment was very strenuous for her as well. Dibei Chen's heart was a little touched. Everywhere, there was only people with their own interests as the most important. Nobody would help somebody else without a reason. Living in such an environment for so long, perhaps even he became the same. It was because of this that as he watched Bailey Hongzhuang, his heart was touched. Time went by, and the pain intensified. Dibei Chen's brows grew tighter and tighter. If you scream, I won't laugh at you, Bailey Hongzhuang said. A sliver of a smile appeared on Dibei Chen's face. She had no idea how much pain he had suffered. Although it was uncomfortable, it wasn't beyond his limits. Compared to before, this was nothing. Bailey Hongzhuang eyed Dibei Chen's legs, veins faintly popping up from under his knee. As long as those veins could reach the soles of his feet, then the paralysis in his legs would be cured. Master, your cultivation isn't strong enough to keep this up. Little Black was worried. Acupuncture not only consumed mental strength, but also inner chi. Bailey Hongzhuang was only at mysterious Earth Realm's late stage. Her strength was insufficient. Understand that. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was pale. From the start, she never intended to completely cure Dibei Chen today. Just hold on for 1 more minute, and the treatment's time can be shortened even more. Dibei Chen also saw how pale Bailey Hongzhuang's face was, and suddenly pulled her. Already can't persevere. Let us stop here. Looking at his handsome face filled with anxiousness, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and didn't insist. The silver needles returned to its case. Then come here every day. In 7 days' time, your legs should be completely cured. Okay, I'll be going to rest now. Bailey Hongzhuang turned around, but the consumption really wasn't small. Although she knew how to treat him, her cultivation was far lesser than before, so the burden was much larger. Dibei Chen's right hand tugged, and Bailey Hongzhuang fell straight onto his chest. What are you doing? Bailey Hongzhuang was startled. I'll bring you back to the house. No, I'm not that weak. Don't move. I'll carry you back to the house. Di Bei Chen's voice was firm without hesitation. Bailey Hong Hong looked up. His deep, ocean-like eyes were sincere and worried. She sighed a little and no longer tried to refuse. When Di Bei Chen left, the two fluff balls jumped on the bed, their faces puzzled. Master, why did you want to help Di Bei Chen? Little Black's face revealed confusion. It wasn't like Master's temperament to have the losing side of the deal. There's things that just don't have a true answer to them. Bailey Hongzhuang said quietly. Di Bei Chen was a deep, unknown mystery, and she knew with certainty that there were many secrets undiscovered regarding him. It was also quite likely that he had a large power behind him. From the view of others, those with power had a limitless view. But she knew the sorrows that came with power. They could never speak with feelings. If they didn't have enough strength, then they'd only be trampled underfoot by others. Going from a peerless genius into a cripple, one could only imagine the torment he felt inside. She had already spent some time thinking about him. There wasn't any real harm to her, even though this wasn't following her way of life. This time she was willing to make an exception. The next few days, Di Bei Chen stopped by Jingli Garden every day for Bailey Hong Hong's acupuncture. The paralysis in his legs lessened little by little. He only needed to wait until the 7th day before he could stand up again. On this day, Bailey Hong Hong took out Qin Yayun's diary. This was where Qin Yayun wrote out her feelings. She also wanted to know what were Qin Yayun's thoughts. In the expanses of letters, Bailey Hong Hong could clearly see the love in her heart Qin Yayun had for Bailey Jintao. She believed that after she married and became a general's wife, her life would be content. She never imagined that she'd be thrust into an abyss. From the beginning, the text was filled with anticipation and longing before falling into a terrible, lonely end. Bailey Hongzhuang sighed quietly. Her mother had loved the wrong man from the start. Turning to the last page in the booklet, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly found that 2 pages were stuck together. She could clearly see that words were written inside. Why would she take all the trouble to glue the last 2 pages together? Only after carefully prying the 2 pages apart while keeping them intact could Bailey Hongzhuang see the text written inside. With just a glance, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be stunned. Her heart constantly jumped in surprise as she read through the paper. Even when she finished, her heart couldn't calm down for a very long time, because it stated she was actually not Qin Yayun's daughter. At first, in order to compete for Bailey Jintao's love, Qin Yayun lied that she was pregnant. Although Bailey Jintao had no doubts about it, Su Wanjing was very dissatisfied. The next day, Bailey Jintao didn't see Qin Yayun, who claimed that she was going to give birth. Originally, Qin Yayun made plans with a woman who was pregnant. The baby would be brought to her as soon as it was born. But when the birth family found that the baby was a boy, they were unwilling to give their child to the maid, letting Qin Yayun fall into a pit. Just as Qin Yayun was panicking, not knowing what to do, the maid suddenly found a baby just outside the gates. This baby was Bailey Hong Hong. So it turns out, I'm not Qin Yayun's and Bailey Jintao's child. Bailey Hong Hong was shocked. But after thinking it through, she was actually very content. Bailey Jintao was never a man she wanted as a father. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang knew there weren't any blood ties, she could breathe a sigh of relief. Only, who are my biological parents? Why did they leave me at the general household's gates? Bailey Hong Hong frowned a little. According to Qin Yayun's description, her body was covered with blood at the time she was found, which meant her parents must have been forced to leave her there. So what exactly happened with her parents? Were they even still alive? From the remnants of Qin Yayun's belongings, Bailey Hongzhuang found a piece of white jade. This was hanging on a pendant from around her neck. It was the only evidence that she and her biological parents could recognize each other with. Later that night, Di Bei Chen watched the absent-minded Bailey Hongzhuang, his voice concerned as he asked, "Wifey, what's going on with you today? What is it?" Since the second he saw Bailey Hongzhuang today, she was always thinking about something else. Even when she talked to him, her voice always sounded very panicked. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head a little. Nothing. After learning the shocking news, she'd been thinking about what the truth might be. But using a single piece of white jade to search the wide sea, it was just too difficult. Dibei Chan stared deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang and suddenly spoke. Although I'm not sure what exactly happened, you can trust me. If you ever need my help, just give me a call. Dibei Chen's face was serious. He truly wanted to help Bailey Hongzhuang. She immediately nodded. Thank you. Dibei Chen didn't say anything else. If Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to tell him, then she would have told him. If she didn't tell him, then he wouldn't ask. You came for your acupuncture. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. After today, you'll be able to stand up and walk again. Dibei Chen's lips widened into a smile. You've worked hard. These days, he could clearly feel the paralysis growing weaker and weaker. It was completely healed down to his calves, but there was still no perception in his feet. But after today's treatment, he'd be able to stand up again. The gratefulness Mu held in his heart for Bailey Hongzhuang could reach the heavens. Ever since his little lord's legs were crippled, he had never seen him smile from his heart for a long, long time. Because of Bailey Hongzhuang, his lord was able to return his former self. Bailey Hongzhuang packed up the silver needles, her face pale. Her lips were in a wide grin. Try standing up. Dibei Chun was a little surprised. After living in a wheelchair for so long, he had almost forgotten how to stand up. Now, as he listened to Bailey Hongzhuang, his heart trembled with no reason. Maybe it was because he had looked forward to this day for too long. Now that the day has come, a hint of fear arose in his heart. If he couldn't stand up, then wouldn't he just be plunged right back into that deep, dark abyss? Bailey Hongzhuang silently laughed, but smiled to encourage Dibei Chun. She had seen many patients who couldn't walk like Dibei Chun and could understand the feelings he felt right now. Dibei Chen's face returned to its usual calmness, as if he was preparing his heart. He placed his hands on the wheelchair and slowly stood up. Feeling the sense of being on the ground again, a splendid smile broke on Dibei Chen's face. For the first time in so long, he finally stood up. Slow footsteps. Dibei Chen walked a few steps. Then suddenly, he dived into the peach blossom forest, breaking into a run. He ran so fast that nobody would have ever believed that he was sitting in a wheelchair for so long. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled brightly. As a doctor, watching a patient run cured was naturally a good thing. Mu was enraptured, almost too excited to say anything. Lord stood up. He truly wanted to shout out to the world. 3 years. Their little lord has finally stood up. Dashing forward, a figure suddenly fell on Bailey Hongzhuang, wrapping her into his embrace. The fragrance of peach blossoms assaulted her senses. Her body was stiff. Dibei Chen's face beamed with smiles as he leaned forward to whisper in her ear, "Thank you. Thank you." 2 simple words, overflowing with gratitude, repeated twice. Bailey Hongzhuang didn't understand what standing up could mean for him. The stiffened body in his bosom relaxed when she heard his words. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "You're welcome." When Dibei Chen stood up, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly discovered he was actually very tall. Lying in his embrace, she could only reach his chest. His posture was straight, shoulders broad and muscular. It felt comfortable and safe. When Bailey Hongzhuang returned to rest, Dibei Chen couldn't help but recall the gentle fragrance that he had cradled softly in his arms. Although he didn't know why he would suddenly make such a move, it was good that Bailey Hongzhuang didn't refuse. After Dibei Chen was cured, he acted as if he was still crippled in front of outsiders. Now wasn't the time to expose himself. But every night, Dibei Chen went to Jingli Garden with his true appearance. Bailey Hongzhuang once again retreated into closed-door cultivation. Other than going to Godly Doctor Square, she was always in her room within Jingli Garden. Right now, increasing her strength was the most important. Dibei Chen didn't bother her, only sitting quietly in the peach blossom forest until the night goes dark and he leaves. Inside the house, Bailey Hongzhuang was skillfully refining some immortality pills. Her pill refining skills had always been good, and coupled with her spirit power, the potency was greatly enhanced. Refining such low-level immortality pills were very simple for her. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang once again went to Godly Doctor Square and directly took out a white porcelain bottle from her heaven-earth pouch. The display case she had asked Du Tianxua to set up a few days ago would finally be used today. Noticing Bailey Hongzhuang's actions, Du Tianxua and Dong Sairu gathered up in front of her. "Lady Bailey, what are you going to sell?" Dong Sairu wondered. Godly Doctor Square's business was blooming, so he couldn't understand what she was trying to sell. If the product has nothing to do with Godly Doctor Square, then it wouldn't be good for the shop. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "If you open it and take a look, won't you know?" Du Tianxua and Dong Sairu glanced at each other before immediately picking up the porcelain bottle to take a look inside. Their eyes widened as they stared. These are immortality pills?" Du Tianxua asked in disbelief. "Right." Du Tianxua swallowed his saliva. There were so many pills inside that porcelain bottle. How many immortality pills were there? A single immortality pill alone was already worth a massive price. With so many pills, Du Tianxua simply couldn't imagine the sum. "Lady Bailey, where did you get these immortality pills?" Dong Sairu asked excitedly. Immortality pills were always in constant demand. There were only a few pill masters in the Imperial City, and very rarely shared their pills. Lady Bailey was too capable, managing to grab so many at once. "I refined it." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. "You go and prepare some nice packaging to wrap the immortality pills in. Put the price directly with the label, and make it 20% higher than Heavenly Jewel Pavilion's prices." Listening to her words, Du Tianxua and Dong Sairu felt their bones go soft. Heavenly Jewel Pavilion's price for the immortality pills are already very high. If we raise our price 20% higher, everybody would go to Heavenly Jewel Pavilion. Where would our business go? Even if we can't sell, just leave it on the aisles. We're not short on money, and besides, it's impossible to not sell a single one. The reason why the price should be raised by 20% is because the pills she refined were 20% more potent than the average immortality pill. Although Heavenly Jewel Pavilion's price was slightly cheaper, there was no way they could have as much pills as her. Right now, all the officers were preparing for the royal hunting feast. The moment to sell immortality pills for the low-leveled cultivators couldn't be better. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang so confident, Du Tianxua and Dong Sairu obediently started to get the brocade boxes to wrap the pills. Only the brocade boxes could match the immortality pills' value. They've always believed in Bailey Hongzhuang. That's because so far, every single action she had done was enough to make one praise her to the heavens. Every day, there were 10 patients. Each of those 10 patients were seen as untreatable by other doctors, but once they saw Bailey Hongzhuang, they would walk away healthy. There wasn't one person Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't cure. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was far younger than them, her medicinal skills were absolutely superb. As long as they walked by Bailey Hongzhuang's side, their lives would be full of honor and glory. News that Godly Doctor Square was selling immortality pills was quickly spread amongst the city. After all, Godly Doctor Square was always busy, and many people had long noticed the new aisles. With a glance, everybody discovered that Godly Doctor Square was actually selling immortality pills. And furthermore, their quantity was even higher than Heavenly Jewel Pavilions. Bailey Yuyan's mood was terrible. She had just finally gotten close to Du Hanyue with great difficulty when Bailey Hongzhuang had suddenly barged in, wrecking everything for her. "Sister, being angry isn't good for your health." Bailey Haoshuan comforted her. Bailey Hongzhuang fought for this one breath and wasted 200,000 gold coins. She isn't a pill master, so the pill furnace would be nothing but an useless ornament when she brings it home. Listening to his words, Bailey Yuyan dipped her head a little. Her face was full of hard-to-conceal hatred. The day as pair of brother and sister get our hands on a cultivation pill will be the day we destroy Bailey Hongzhuang. We couldn't ask Pill Master Yun to refine us a cultivation pill, so we'll need to find some way to buy them. I'd rather we ask Heavenly Jewel Pavilion shopkeeper to see if they could find some way to get us 2 pills. It's useless. Bailey Yin sighed. I already asked. Right now, everybody's rushing to buy a cultivation pill, and Heavenly Jewel Pavilion stock has long been sold out. Right now, they're still waiting on a new shipment, and it's not sure when it'll arrive. Cultivation pills were for low-level cultivators to stabilize their foundation and boost their cultivating speed. There's no better time for young practitioners to take a cultivation pill than now, right before the Imperial Hunting Banquet. Now, the levels of strength in the younger generation were almost the same. Whoever could get a cultivation pill, their strength would grow to be a cut above the rest. It'd be very helpful for winning first place in the hunting banquet. Not everybody could get a cultivation pill, but Bailey Yin heard that the Prime Minister's daughter, Li Yuyue, had already obtained one. Bailey Haoxuan also frowned. He despised Bailey Hongzhuang so much that he wanted to go to the Godly Doctor Square to teach her a lesson right then and there. As they worried, a conversation at a nearby table suddenly caught their attention. Did you hear yet? Godly Doctor Square started selling immortality pills, and many families had already bought cultivation pills there early morning. Furthermore, I've also heard that the price is even 20% higher than Heavenly Jewel Pavilions, but there were still a lot of people willing to buy it. Cultivation pills are nice, but it's too expensive for us to even hope to obtain. The Imperial Hunting Feast is very close, so all the court's younger generation are fighting for resources. Selling them now, Godly Doctor Square must make a killing. Bailey Yin and Bailey Haoxuan looked at each other, their faces in stunned dismay, even wondering if their ears had gone bad. Godly Doctor Square even sells cultivation pills? Bailey Haoxuan directly walked over to that nearby table and asked, "Is what you're saying actually true?" Their conversation having been suddenly interrupted, the 3 men were very unhappy. But after recognizing Bailey Haoxuan's identity, they didn't dare to reveal any dissatisfaction and could only nod. It's true. How could Godly Doctor Square sell immortality pills? Bailey Haoxuan's face was baffled. Maybe it even had a lot of immortality pills. Could it be true Bailey Hongzhuang is actually a pill master? Bailey Haoxuan couldn't help but cry out. Impossible. Bailey Yin didn't hesitate to refute Bailey Haoxuan's guess. Just look at her. How could she be a pill master? In all of Shengxue continent, pill masters were in noble existence. The harsh conditions alone is enough to stop countless people from becoming one. Trash like Bailey Hongzhuang as a pill master? What a joke. Bailey Haoxuan also thought his guess was ridiculous and immediately smiled, embarrassed. Why don't we go and check out Godly Doctor Square for ourselves? What they hear could be false, whereas seeing is believing. They would know once they went over to take a look. Bailey Yin nodded. Let's go. When the two arrived at Godly Doctor Square, they found a large crowd of people, all discussing the cultivation pills. This Godly Dr. Bailey is really too godly. She can even bring out such rare immortality pills to sell. I heard that these immortality pills were actually personally refined by Godly Dr. Bailey herself. Simply unbelievable. I never expected that Lady Bailey hid herself so deeply. Thinking back, we were truly laughable. When Bailey Yin heard that Bailey Hongzhuang herself refined the immortality pills, a mocking look appeared in her eyes. That woman was just begging to get shot in the mouth. Even after following Master Yun to learn the art of pill refining for so long, Du Hanyue was still only a pill master apprentice. He still wasn't even able to form the immortality pill's shape when he refined. Bailey Honghaung spent more than 10 years in the general household. It was impossible she could have contacted a pill master, so how could she have possibly refined that? Bailey Yin and Bailey Haoxuan squeezed through the crowd before they could finally spot the pills lying on the shelves. Perfectly rounded immortality pills sat in the center of a brocade box. It was actually the foundation stabilizing cultivation pills they needed the most. Staring at the number of cultivation pills in that box, the two's eyes looked at each other in shock. They did everything they could to get their hands on a single cultivation pill, but there were actually so many in godly Dr. Square. Bailey Yuyin's eyes were filled with endless jealousy. How could Bailey Hongzhuang, who she could step under the sole of her feet, have so many cultivation pills? Sister, should we buy two? Bailey Haoxuan asked aloud. Although there was enmity between them and Bailey Hongzhuang, the hunting banquet was very soon. Right now, it was most important to increase their strength and give a good performance. Bailey Yuyin was silent for a moment before nodding her head. Okay. When the two walked up to the shelves, the crowd burst into sighs, many raising their brows. Since the drafting banquet, Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Yuyin's animosity towards each other became very well known and talked about. For Bailey Yuyin, who had poisoned Bailey Hongzhuang blind, many people thought she was too vicious and slowly grew estranged from her. Now that the siblings came to godly Dr. Square, they were naturally happy to watch. 2 cultivation pills. Bailey Yuyin directly told Dong Sairu. A cultivation pill was 50,000 gold coins. Although it was 10,000 more gold coins than Heavenly Jewel Pavilion, 2 pills were still cheaper than flattering and asking Du Hanyue. It just so happened that Bailey Hongzhuang wasn't here right now, so she could buy a cultivation pill and tilt the scales. Bailey Haoxuan's face was full of joy. Before the royal hunting feast, he could finally get his hands on a cultivation pill. Dong Sairu looked at the 2 Bailey siblings and couldn't help but snicker in her heart. Lady Bailey's prediction really came true. Bailey Yuyin and Bailey Haoxuan actually came. Noticing Dong Sairu didn't move for a long time, Bailey Yuyin couldn't help but frown. Give it to me. Our boss said the pills can be sold to anyone but those of the general's household. Dong Sairu's voice was apathetic. This stupid woman was too vicious. She bullied their boss for so many years and still wants to buy an immortality pill from here. Dream on. Hearing her words, Bailey Yuyin and Bailey Haoxuan's faces both became black. It was Bailey Hongzhuang. The crowd couldn't help but laugh. Bailey Yuyin was always so evil. It was only right for Bailey Hongzhuang to not sell her anything. Bailey Hongzhuang isn't here right now. How about I give you 1,000 extra gold coins as a gift, and you can give me 2 cultivation pills? Bailey Yuyin asked, her voice hushed. She can't ignore her image in front of so many people. This was the only way. You want to bribe me? A trace of disdain appeared in Dong Sairu's eyes. No way. When they were down and broke, Bailey Hongzhuang was the one who gave them a job. Now, not only did she treat them very well, and even freely taught them her medicinal skills, she always felt that she was most fortunate to have the honor to follow by Bailey Honghang's side. Let alone 1,000 gold coins, even if it was 10 million gold coins, she wouldn't hesitate to refuse. The 2 of you go. Godly Dr. Square doesn't welcome you. The words Du Tianshuo was even more impolite. He could feel nothing but disgust for the 2. They were an eyesore just standing there. Watching Du Tianshuo and Dong Sairu's attitude, Bailey Yuyin was furious. What are you, daring to speak to me like that? You must be impatient to die. She was the eldest miss of the general household. Her identity couldn't be compared to a commoner. So how could she let the guys look down on her so much? Bailey Haoxuan's face was cold. If you don't want to die, obediently hand over the immortality pills. Losing your life for Bailey Hongzhuang isn't worth it. I never thought that a Bailey-born son would actually threaten to take a human life just for some cultivation pills. The light, sweet voice held traces of disdain and contempt. Everybody saw a white figure slowly walking out from inside Godly Dr. Square. Who could this person be but Bailey Hongzhuang? Bailey Yuyin and Bailey Haoxuan's faces changed. With the current situation, they fear that they'd be ridiculed in every way possible. Only 1,000 gold coins. Isn't Lady Bailey just too stingy? Her exquisite, jade-like face revealed a small smile, but the depths of her black eyes were cold. Bye. Li Hong. Zhuang. Bailey Yuyin spat between clenched teeth. She didn't know when Bailey Hongzhuang started acting this way after forgetting to teach her a lesson. These immortality pills were brought by somebody else to sell to everybody. So why are you not letting us buy them? Bailey Haoxuan's voice was chilly. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. Who told you these immorality pills were brought here to be sold by someone else? If it wasn't, is it possible you refined them yourself? Bailey Yuyin asked mockingly. Yes, it's what I've refined. Bailey Hongzhuang, I never knew that you were actually so shameless, able to talk nonsense without the least bit of embarrassment. Bailey Yuyin's words were merciless, oozing with ridicule. She wanted to show everybody Bailey Hongzhuang's true colors. Bailey Hongzhuang still smiled coldly, her voice menacing. Your eyes can't see what I've refined. Besides, even if I didn't refine the immortality pills, so what? If I say don't sell, it's not for sale. With that, Bailey Hongzhuang raised her voice. Godly Dr. Square doesn't welcome anyone of the general's household. If someone buys a pill and gives it to the general's household, once discovered, shall never enter Godly Dr. Square again. The indifferent, cold voice was overbearing and decisive, clearly resounding in everybody's ears. Whoever was weighing the scales in their hearts immediately perished of thoughts once they heard her words. Whether it was Bailey Hongzhuang's medicinal skills or a large number of cultivation pills in Godly Dr. Square, it all reflected just how powerful Godly Dr. Square was. Going against Godly Dr. Square for the general's household, it simply wasn't worth it. Bailey Yuyin was livid. Bailey Hongzhuang, you're bullying us. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile widened, becoming all the more enchanting. I'm bullying you. What can you do about it? You're courting death. With a loud roar, Bailey Haoxuan's inner chi suddenly erupted around his body as his right hand formed a fist, forming winds as he mercilessly punched towards Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Does this woman really think that they wouldn't dare to raise their hands against her under the glare of the public eye? He needed to teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson, letting her fully understand just who it is that's superior. The light in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes sharpened, astonishing bursts of murderous intent as her eyes opened. She held out her hands in front of Bailey Haoxuan, welcoming his punch. Bang! Inner chi collided, sparks flying in the air. When Bailey Haoxuan saw Bailey Hongzhuang stretch out her hands, his heart suddenly got a bad feeling. It was well known that Bailey Hongzhuang was unable to cultivate and that Bailey Haoxuan was a practitioner in the intermediate stage of mysterious Earth realm. If the fist flies down, Bailey Hongzhuang might get seriously injured. But under everybody's astonished eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang actually held Bailey Haoxuan's fist in her hands. Bailey Hongzhuang was completely unharmed. Bailey Haoxuan looked at her, horrified. Although he had already known she could cultivate the night she left the general's household, he still believed that no matter what, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't be his opponent. But in that tight grip, he could clearly feel that Bailey Hongzhuang was actually even stronger than he was. This is impossible. Bailey Haoxuan was stunned as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Just when did she start cultivating? Bailey Yuyin was also shocked. She knew that Bailey Haoxuan didn't hold back just now. But even so, Bailey Hongzhuang was still alive. What could that mean? You quickly let go of me, Bailey Haoxuan roared. Subdued by Bailey Hongzhuang in front of so many people, it was just too shameful. What if I don't let go? The light in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes was cold. It was always Bailey Haoxuan's arrogant manners that had disgusted her the most. If you don't let go, I'll kill you. Bailey Haoxuan's voice hardened, growing even colder. Bailey Hongzhuang dared to make him lose so much face. He needs to kill her. It looks like you still don't know the current situation. An enchanting laugh spilled out from her cherry-red lips, but her ink-black eyes were covered in ice. The next moment, under everybody's stunned gaze, the palm of her hand ruthlessly struck Bailey Haoxuan's wrist. Kacha! The crisp sound of broken bone rang in everybody's ears, followed by Bailey Haoxuan's piercing screams. Ah! Drip! Drop! Drip! Drop! Blood dripped onto the ground, its deep red color provoking everyone's eyes. Bailey Haoxuan's hand was crippled by Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Yin was still standing in the same place as before. Everything had happened too fast, and she never thought Bailey Hongzhuang would even dare to fight back against Bailey Haoshuan. When she finally reacted, it was too late. Bailey Hongzhuang, you dared to hurt Haoshuan. Could it be that you really don't want to live? Bailey Yin's voice was angry. Bailey Haoshuan was Bailey Jintao's only son and was always deeply loved. Now Bailey Hongzhuang dared to break his hands. Isn't she afraid of earning Bailey Jintao's wrath? I never did anything to you in the past, but didn't you just try to kill me? Now saying such words to me, isn't it laughable? Since the start, she was always in the worst position, so what else does she need to worry about? Bailey Yin was startled. She couldn't refute Bailey Hongzhuang's words. Bailey Hongzhuang, I will not let you off. Bailey Haoshuan clenched his teeth. His eyes had gone completely red with blood. Since birth, he had never been so seriously injured. Looking into his eyes, full of hatred, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked to him, her right hand patting Bailey Haoshuan's face. TSK, that look is really fierce. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice changed. Did you know for the past 14 years, I've been using that expression to stare at you? The words Bailey Hongzhuang asked were in a whisper. Bailey Haoshuan couldn't help but tremble. He suddenly felt that Bailey Hongzhuang was truly frightening. If you're smart, then the next time you see me, it's best to make a detour. Otherwise, it wouldn't be as simple as a single hand that's broken. Bailey Hongzhuang stood up and looked at Bailey Yin and Bailey Haoshuan indifferently. Now scram. Her charming face livid with anger. Bailey Yin really wanted to just rush up to Bailey Hongzhuang and hit her. But right now, Bailey Haoshuan's situation couldn't be delayed. They needed to find a good doctor as soon as possible to treat his hand. Otherwise, Bailey Haoshuan's life would be ruined. After the two siblings left, the crowd felt endless emotion. This Bailey Hongzhuang was truly different. Handling her matters ruthlessly without dragging her feet, everyone shivered. But when they thought of what the Bailey siblings had done, they could only feel that Bailey Hongzhuang's actions were right. If you were lenient with them, they'd only come back more ruthless. The news was quickly spread around the imperial capital, and Bailey Hongzhuang started to become a very influential figure in the city. Bailey Hongzhuang refused to sell her immortality pills to the general's household, and had even crippled Bailey Haoshuan's hand in front of everybody's eyes. Prime Minister Li Chengqian's people, and those who weren't on good terms with Bailey Jintao, were all enjoying the chaos. Who knew Bailey Jintao would be so blind? In their opinion, between Bailey Jintao's 3 children, Bailey Yin, Bailey Haoshuan, and Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey Hongzhuang had the most potential. But now, she had become Bailey Jintao's opponent. It was just too funny. A single Bailey Hongzhuang could beat Bailey Jintao left and right. Jingli Garden, I heard you taught Bailey Haoshuan a lesson today. Debate Chen asked, smiling. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded a little. News spreads fast in the imperial city. It had only been a short 4 hours since it happened, but so many people already know. Bailey Haoshuan is Bailey Jintao's treasured son. Now that you've crippled his hand, I'm afraid that Bailey Jintao won't forgive you. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow. She wanted to know why Debate Chen mentioned such a thing. I think we should marry earlier. Once you're my wife, Bailey Jintao no longer have the least bit of influence over you. What do you think? Debate Chen smiled as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. Bailey Hongzhuang was a little startled. She never expected for Debate Chen to come out with such a story. Her mind thought rapidly as she gazed at Debate Chen. Suddenly she smiled good. Bailey Hongzhuang was still under Bailey Jintao's influence. Outsiders didn't know what happened inside the general household's walls. So many people in the imperial city were calling her unfilial and disrespectful. Debate Chen saying such a thing now meant he was worried for her. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang agree so happily, Debate Chen's smile grew more and more brilliant. His eyes that were like shattered gems glittered brightly. If you don't mind, I'll start preparing the betrothal gifts. Debate Chen grinned quietly. Bailey Hongzhuang slightly frowned. I've cut off all ties with the general's household. so I wouldn't be marrying from that house. No problem. Dibei Chen wasn't surprised. So then how about you marry from Jingli Garden? Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. Her actions would have certainly been seen as random or stupid by others, but Dibei Chen always understood what she thought. Little Lord, Bailey Jintao was furious when he heard about what happened and was preparing to go teach Lady Bailey a lesson at godly Dr. Square. Heimu's face was heavy as he reported to Dibei Chen. Should I send some people to teach Bailey Jintao a lesson himself? Although he knew his lord would refute it, he just couldn't help it. When Lady Bailey wasn't good, she was treated unjustly by the general's household. Now, Bailey Haoshuan even threatened to kill her, saying she was an unfilial daughter. Before, when Bailey Yuyan had blinded Lady Bailey, they've never seen Bailey Jintao give Bailey Yuyan the slightest bit of punishment. Send someone to warn Bailey Jintao. Make sure not to expose our identity. Dibei Chen's eyes glimmered with cold light. Bailey Hongzhuang was one of his people. Whoever dared to bully her, he'll never let off. When Heimu heard Dibei Chen's words, he couldn't help but stare at him, stunned. Usually when he proposed the idea, his little lord would never agree. How could it be different now? Could it be because of Lady Bailey? I'll star at once, Heimu said excitedly. Wait a minute. Dibei Chen suddenly stopped him. Heimu couldn't help but worry. His little lord didn't change his mind, right? Cripple that old codger's hand as well. As you wish. The next day, Bailey Hongzhuang went to godly Dr. Square as usual, waiting for Bailey Jintao to come and cause trouble. With Bailey Jintao's temper, once he knew she was the one who crippled Bailey Haoshuan's arm, he'd never let her off. But after waiting a whole day in godly Dr. Square, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't even catch a glimpse of Bailey Jintao. A touch of doubt appeared in her eyes. Bailey Jintao, that old codger isn't going to not come, is he? Little Black asked as he hopped. Little White also thought it was strange. I doubt that old crank's kind enough to. As Bailey Hongzhuang thought, Ji Wenbin walked over smiling. Bailey Hongzhuang, I heard something funny, haha. What's so funny? Yesterday, didn't you cripple Bailey Haoshuan's hand? Ji Wenbin's face was full of glee. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yes, everybody knew about that yesterday. What's funny? Ji Wenbin waved his hands. That's not the funniest part. The funniest thing is that just today, the general household's General Bailey Jintao's hand also got crippled. Bailey Honghound was startled. Is that the truth? Of course it's true. I've only just heard myself, but pretty soon, everybody would know. Ji Wenbin laughed. The general's household has been bullying you for so long. Now the evil they've done are being repaid in kind. Her exquisite face smiled. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but think of Dibei Chen. Could this matter be because of him? Currently, the general's household was in chaos. Su Wanjing knew that Bailey Haoshuan's right hand was broken. Although the doctor had reconnected the bones, it would take 3 months to completely heal. He wouldn't be able to participate in the royal hunting feast. She was hoping for Bailey Jintao to go and teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson. Her precious son had never been injured for so many years. Bailey Hongzhuang dared to hit Haoshuan. It was absolutely unforgivable. But now Bailey Jintao was actually in front of her, clutching his lacerated right hand. Lord, what happened to you? Su Wanjing asked, concerned. Bailey Jintao's expression was very ugly. Nothing, don't ask. The facts were difficult to accept. Before he could even see his appearance, he was punched, and his right hand directly crippled. Although Bailey Jintao didn't know who that person was, he knew the man had some sort of relationship to Bailey Hongzhuang. Just before he had disappeared, a few words were whispered into his ears. Don't bother Bailey Hongzhuang, or suffer the consequences. He was terrified. He wasn't at all an opponent for this man who was able to quietly sneak into the general's household. If he were to look for trouble with Bailey Hongzhuang, he's afraid that the general's household will have it difficult. At this moment, Bailey Jintao suddenly felt very regretful. If he knew Bailey Hongzhuang had such a large force supporting her, he never would have treated Bailey Hongzhuang the way he did. Godly Dr. Square alone was a humongous treasure. Moreover, isn't it even selling immortality pills there now? Then, thinking about all those years spent protecting the useless Bailey Yuyin, he just couldn't understand why he had made such a choice. Seeing how serious Bailey Jintao looked, Su Wanjing didn't dare to ask any further. She turned and said, "Lord, no matter what, you need to get revenge for Hao Xuan." That was what had originally made Bailey Jintao worry so much. Now that he heard Su Wanjing mention it again, for some reason, his heart felt incredibly annoyed. His skill was inferior to the person who hit him, and now you want me to accompany him in losing face. Bailey Jintao flew into a rage before pointing his finger in Bailey Yuyin, his voice furious. Know your place a little, and don't go leave the household to cause trouble again. You can't bother Bailey Hongzhuang again, understand? Bailey Yuyin looked at Bailey Jintao, stunned. Why would father suddenly protect Bailey Hongzhuang? Su Wanjing was also stunned. Last night, he had clearly said that he'd teach Bailey Hongzhuang a lesson she wouldn't forget. How did his attitude turn a complete 180 from last night? After his wound was dressed, Bailey Jintao left. Today really made him worry. The sunlight was golden, shining brightly. It was a fine spring day. When Bailey Hongzhuang left her room, she suddenly found that Jingli Garden had changed greatly. The maids and manservants shuttled around the estate. She almost even thought she was in the wrong place. Her face was stiff as she walked around. Looking at the familiar peach blossom forest, Bailey Hongzhuang knew she wasn't at the wrong place and immediately walked over to Jingli Garden's gates. Congratulations to Lady Bailey. Congratulations to Lady Bailey. When they saw Bailey Hongzhuang come out, the maids and manservants immediately started to bow and congratulate her. The look on Bailey Hongzhuang's face was strange. She didn't know what was wrong with these people. Then she saw the red lanterns being raised high into the air. The usual peaceful calm in Jingli Garden turned bright and festive. Outside the gates, the carriages were constantly unloading items. Watching the scene that was full or red, two words instantly popped up in Bailey Hongzhuang mind diary. Sure enough, Dibei Chen popped up in front of her. Wifey, are you satisfied with your hubby's dowry? Looking at the piles of gifts in front of the gates, a smile appeared on Bailey Hongzhuang's lips. Just barely. The betrothal gifts were extremely extravagant compared to other women when they married. Even when a royal prince married, there'd still only be half as much. Just barely enough. Dibei Chun pretended to frown, turn around, and take a look. Although Bailey Hongzhuang was confused, she still turned her head. She didn't understand just what Dibei Chen wanted her to see. Master, look. The name plaque changed. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyes to look at the signboard and discovered that the three characters Jingli Garden had been replaced at some unknown time to Qinzhuang Garden. Wifey, this is also one of the betrothal gifts, Dibei Chun said with a smile. The loud noises had already attracted many people. At first, many people were skeptical when they saw Dibei Chun bringing the betrothal gifts to Jingli Garden. Didn't the emperor marry Dibei Chun to Bailey Hongzhuang? However, Dibei Chun didn't bring the betrothal gifts to the general's household, but instead here. It was just too strange. But when everyone saw Bailey Hongzhuang come out of Qinzhuang Garden, everybody instantly had a flash of understanding. So Bailey Hongzhuang was living here. Prince Chen's betrothal gifts are so generous. It's much more than the other prince's gifts. One person exclaimed. Other royal marriages were also very lavish, making others feel amazed. But none of them could compare to Dibei Chen's astonishing betrothal gifts. Note, Qinzhuang takes the zhuang from Hongzhuang's name, and Qin means to marry. This proves Prince Chun cares a lot about Lady Bailey. But Lady Bailey is just too great of a woman. I don't think any number of betrothal gifts could be able to equal her in worth. Everybody nodded their heads. Xinyuan Huan and Bailey Jintao must have been blind. Such a good woman like Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't lose at all compared to Li Yuyue and Bailey Yuyin. It was Prince Chen's good fortune. But Prince Chen should have went to the general's household to bring the betrothal gifts. If he brought everything to Qinzhuang Garden, then where would the general household's face go? Hearing his words, everyone was stunned. Right? Isn't the Prince Chun just treating the general's household like air by doing this? Haven't you guys seen how stiff Lady Bailey's and the general's household relationship was? Maybe it's Lady Bailey's own idea. Everybody suddenly understood. Earlier in Godly Doctor Square, Bailey Hongzhuang and the two Bailey siblings' relationship was extremely terrible. If her days in the general's household was full of suffering, then it was much better for her to just leave and live outside. Bailey Hongzhuang's smile grew soft as she watched the servants bring the gifts into her house. In that moment, she felt as if everyone else's thoughts were meaningless. As long as she and Dibei Chen could understand each other's, it was enough. Presenting such lavish betrothal presents here, aren't you afraid of offending Bailey Jintao? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Dibei Chen raised his long eyebrows. The reason why son-in-law fears father-in-law is because he's worried that father-in-law won't allow his daughter to get married. Since you promised me, husband and wife would naturally make a united front. You hate. I hate even more. The corners of Bailey Hongzhuang's lips slowly curled into a smile. I'm very happy with these betrothal gifts. There's a propitious day in 7 days. I told the emperor to let us wed on that day. What do you think? It's your choice. But our marriage is nothing but a scam. It isn't real. Bailey Hongzhuang streaked the words. Dibei Chen didn't seem to care and just nodded. I understand. But if wifey wants us to start as an act, and later truly falls in love with me, I won't mind. Bailey Hongzhuang needed him to avoid trouble, and he also needed her to pull wool over others' ears and eyes. Getting married, it was a win-win situation. I'll mind. Wifey, your hubby will be sad if you say that. That's enough. Bailey Hongzhuang glanced at him, smiling quietly. I'm in a good mood. Let's go out and eat. You're in a good mood? You aren't lying? Of course. While Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen went to eat and drink at the restaurant happily, Bailey Jintao's lungs were bursting in rage. This Dibei Chen's going too far. He didn't even give me the least bit of face. Bailey Jintao viciously threw a teacup on the ground. The imperial city was big, and rumors were easily spread. Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen's marriage was just too eye-catching. Everybody knew that Li Chengxia was just waiting for a chance to embarrass him. Now he just became the biggest joke of the imperial city. Father, it must have been Bailey Hongzhuang who asked Prince Chen to do this. Prince Chen wouldn't have any reason otherwise. Bailey Yuyan's face was livid. Bailey Hongzhuang's actions were growing more and more excessive. Lord, I believe Bailey Hongzhuang dared to do this because we didn't retaliate back. If we don't do something, I'm afraid that girl will become even worse. Su Wanjing's eyes were glittering with hatred. She really couldn't wait to kill that girl. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang, Bailey Haoshuan would have never missed his chance to present his brilliance, full of glory, at the royal hunting feast. Later, nighty-night. This is too outrageous. I must go and ask the emperor to discipline Prince Chun. Bailey Jintao was furious. He was always respected his whole life. When was he ever so humiliated? Lord, why aren't you going forward to teach that girl a lesson? Su Wanjing asked unhappily. Is it because that girl had prospects, so you wanted to repair your father-daughter relationships? Right now, Bailey Hongzhuang was a very powerful figure in the imperial city. Whether it was her medicinal skills or the immortality pills, the absolute majority of influential officials all wanted to build a relationship with her. It wasn't surprising for Bailey Jintao to have a similar idea. Talking nonsense, Bailey Jintao angrily rebuked. Nobody asked you to speak. With a flip of the hand, that mysterious man could have easily ended his life. Between pride and his life was naturally more important. So viciously denounced by Bailey Jintao, a small glimmer like crystal couldn't help but appear in the corners of Su Wanjing's eyes. Throughout the years, The general had always treated her very well. Ordinarily, he would usually never say any cruel words to her. But now, because of Bailey Hongzhuang, she's been scolded many times already by the general. Bailey Yin snuck a look at the sad Su Wanjing and couldn't help but stand up. Father, any discerning person could see that this was Bailey Hongzhuang's fault. So why would you still want to protect her? If you had the ability to beat that girl, then I wouldn't be so upset. Bailey Yin's face paled. The hate in her heart for Bailey Hongzhuang was at its extreme. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang, then her looks never would have become like this. The Imperial Palace. Xinyuan Yutian and Jiang Jining were playing Go together. Xinyuan Yutian placed down a black stone. I'm afraid Bailey Jintao would have vomited blood from anger by now. Jiang Jining followed up, laying down a white stone as she said, he's taking the consequences for his own actions. If Bailey Jintao had never treated Bailey Hongzhuang so terribly, she never would have done these things. In fact, she would have even grown to become his backbone. Oh, Xinyuan Yutian raised an eyebrow. You think Bailey Hongzhuang's good? Jiang Jining quietly smiled and nodded. I think this girl's quite unique. What might the emperor think? This time, Bailey Jintao was blind. Otherwise, Bailey Hongzhuang would have become a very good candidate to become the crown princess. Xinyuan Yutian sighed. If he hadn't found out so late, then he never would have rescinded Huaner and Bailey Hongzhuang's engagement. But an emperor's words wasn't a joke. Even he felt that it was a pity it couldn't be changed. Today, news about Dibei Chen's betrothal gifts have already spreaded everywhere in the imperial city and left no face for Bailey Jintao. If he comes to the palace, Emperor, Jiang Jining hesitated. Dibei Chen's identity was very special, and also knew that the emperor was currently caught in a very difficult situation. I'll have to soothe Bailey Jintao. Xinyuan Yutian's eyes were very complicated. Although they've already been silent for 3 years, we still can't take them lightly. We can't let Dibei Chen make a move. Jiang Jining's eyes grew startled, understanding what Xinyuan Huan meant. This time, they could only wrong Bailey Jintao. Time trickled slowly as the next 3 days passed. During that time, Bailey Honghound never caught even a glimpse of Dibei Chen, who was preparing for the wedding. Instead, she became a complete idler, holed up all day in Godly Doctor Square and Qinzhuang Garden, asking nothing of the wedding. Qinzhuang Garden's changes weren't small at all. Dibei Chen brought over waves after waves of nannies, maids, and manservants to put Qinzhuang Garden in order. Bright, red colors could be seen everywhere in Qinzhuang Garden, the air full of festivity. Although everybody moved around busily, thick joy could be seen on their faces. Their prince was finally getting married. The sky still wasn't bright as nannies and maids all clustered around Bailey Hongzhuang's body, waiting for her to put on the red dress before beginning to help Bailey Hongzhuang apply her makeup. Everything was done step by step, and everyone was very busy. Bailey Honghound was similar to a doll as people draped jewelry on her and combed her hair into a chignon. She never thought that a marriage would actually have to be so complicated. She finally understood why Dibei Chen was so busy to the point where she couldn't even catch a glimpse of him. Just understanding these customs, the personalized wedding dress, and looking for an experienced nanny alone would take an unimaginably long time. Master! Master! The black and white fluff balls were tragically tossed aside by the nanny and bumped into a maid before dropping on the floor. Many people were busily walking the 2 fluff balls under the constant threat of being trampled on. Hearing their cries, Bailey Hongzhuang quickly discovered their situation and immediately withdrew them back to the primordial chaos ring. Any later, and they might have been stomped flat as a pancake. Ji Wenbin, Dong Sairu, and Du Tianxua arrived at Qinzhuang Garden early in the morning. They had long known that Bailey Hongzhuang had wanted to marry from Qinzhuang Garden and wanted no relation to the general's household. Usually, it was very lively when a bride was to be married. But the huge Qinzhuang Garden had only Bailey Hongzhuang and no family members to give their blessings. It was rather regrettable. Since they were her friends, they decided to come today and act as her family. At the very least, they sincerely hoped for Bailey Hongzhuang to be happy. When they entered Bailey Hongzhuang's room, the three people were frightened. The room was just like a battlefield. Groups of servants surrounded her as they unceasingly stacked various things on her face, hair, and body. Dong Sairu shrank his neck. Princess's battle plan for marriage is really unusual. I've never seen a strategy like this. It'd be strange if you have seen one. Du Tianxuo laughed. The princess's identity is honored and dignified. If it wasn't for Brother Ji kindly introducing us, we simply never would have gotten the chance to see a princess's wedding. In such a boring situation, Bailey Hongzhuang could only think about how slow the time was. Finally, the nanny looked at her and nodded with satisfaction. So beautiful. This is the most beautiful princess I've ever seen. Not only the nanny, but the other people in the room were also stunned when they saw Bailey Hongzhuang. This beauty was enough to ruin a kingdom. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at herself in the bronze mirror. For a few seconds, she couldn't help but be completely stupefied. Her long, black hair was pulled up high, combed into a unique, elegant bun that was perfect for a princess, slender, willow-like brows, gentle and elegant. A pair of phoenix eyes glittered brightly, a hint of red on her cheeks. Her fine, jade-like nose was small and delicate, cherry-red lips holding a charming luster. What was most notable was the specially painted peach blossom drawn between her brows, just like Qinzhuang Garden that was full of peach blossoms. It symbolized the flowers Dibei Chun had gifted her along with the house, the feelings between her and Dibei Chun. Her ivory-like skin was as smooth as water, coupled with a large, red gown. It radiated nobility and grace, peerlessly elegant. Everything was ready, and all the people in the room retreated outside. All that was left was to wait for the auspicious time to arrive, for the prince to escort the bride to the wedding. Seeing Ji Wenbin and the others enter the room, Bailey Hongzhuang opened her mouth to reveal a bright smile. "You've come." But Ji Wenbin, Dong Sairu, and Du Tianxuo just stood there, frozen in place. Looking at the beauty in front of them, Bailey Hongzhuang, full of grace and incomparable elegance, a kind, unspeakable shock appeared in their hearts. So beautiful. This was a beauty beyond their wildest imaginations. In that moment, they clearly understood the gap between them and Bailey Hongzhuang. The general's household's eldest miss, the crown princess, she was even more beautiful than both of them. Usually when they were together, Bailey Hongzhuang had never acted proud or arrogant. They've never really thought of any real distance between them and the amiable Bailey Hongzhuang. But seeing her now, they discovered just how large the distance between them was. "Hongzhuang, you're so beautiful today. Not even the most beautiful lady in the imperial capital can compare to you at all." Dong Sairu praised honestly, her voice full of excitement. She swore that she never saw anyone as beautiful in her entire life. Even though she was a woman as well, she wasn't the slightest bit jealous because she clearly knew of the distance between them and instead looked up to her. Before, the imperial city never seriously chose who was the most beautiful woman in the imperial city, but many people believe that Bailey Yuyan was the most beautiful. The rumor vanished once Bailey Yuyan was disfigured. After Bailey Yuyan was disfigured, the prime minister's daughter, crown princess, Li Yue, was believed to be the most beautiful by the public. Originally, the best woman in the imperial capital was Li Yue, and Bailey Yuyan had just wandered in. But now that Bailey Yuyan was disfigured and lost her qualifications, the title of most beautiful naturally fell back on Li Yue's head. Nowadays, Li Yue was extremely proud and grew more and more arrogant, openly proclaiming her title as the most beautiful woman in the imperial capital. But in Dong Sairu's eyes, Li Yue couldn't even compare to Bailey Hongzhuang. Ji Wenbin and Du Tianxuo also nodded their heads. Her beauty was simply unforgettable. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, but didn't put Dong Sairu's words in her heart. An unwarranted title just held no meaning for her. Hongzhuang, I wish you happiness. Ji Wenbin blessed heartfully. He had always seen Bailey Hongzhuang as a sister, and now looking at Bailey Hongzhuang in her red wedding dress, his heart sighed with emotion. Thank you. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were soft. I'm very lucky to have such wonderful friends like you all to accompany me on my wedding day. Since the moment she'd left the general's household, she always felt lonely. But now as she looked at the three bright, smiling faces in front of her, she realized that was never alone. Hongzhuang, today you aren't getting married from the general's household. The general's household? Ji Wenbin frowned slightly. This was just blatant contempt at the general's household. Shouldn't you fear the general's rage? After all, this marriage was something the whole city watched, and even the emperor himself will come. If Bailey Hongzhuang is marrying from Qinzhuang Garden, where would the general's face be put? Will the general even attend the wedding? If Bailey Jintao didn't attend, then there isn't anything to talk about. But if Bailey Jintao did attend, it wouldn't be leaving him any face at all. Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow. Whether they come or not, what does that have to do with me? She had already broken all ties with the general's household and wasn't even related to the general's household by blood. If she marrying today will lose the general face, then all these years, the general had never given her any face. After more than a decade, without a shred of dignity, bit by bit, she'll start to earn it back. Bailey Jintao needs a good taste of shame. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, the three looked at each other in blank dismay. It seems like Bailey Hongzhuang and the general's household's relationship was already irreconcilable. I'm just worried if you do that, Bailey Jintao will do something on the big day. Bailey Hongzhuang laughed. With the emperor's presence, as long as he has a brain, he wouldn't dare to try and cause trouble. Hearing this, the three realized they were worries of Bailey Jintao coming to ruin the wedding in anger were meaningless. Now that Bailey Hongzhuang mentioned it, with the emperor present, Bailey Jintao can only swallow his anger. General's household. Bailey Jintao, Su Wanjing, Bailey Yuyin, and Bailey Haoshuan were gathered in the front hall, their faces all very ugly. They had always thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have no choice but to return to the general's household to get married. After all, marrying alone from another place was just simply too sad. They've even had a good time thinking of ways to ridicule her before preparing Bailey Hongzhuang for the marriage. But all day, there wasn't even the slightest bit of news. Only today were they completely sure that Bailey Hongzhuang was marrying from Qinzhuang Garden. She was completely ignoring the general's household's existence, marrying from somewhere else. Even Dibei Chan didn't ask them so much a single question before arranging the wedding all by himself. They never even put the general's household in their sight. Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei Chun are too much. Bailey Yuyin spoke angrily. Like this, they didn't give the general's household any face at all. Bailey Jintao's face was gloomy. Throughout his life, he was always respected, but never expected to lose face twice because of Bailey Hongzhuang. The last time, the emperor only comforted him a little and did nothing to punish Dibei Chun. In the end, he could only swallow his anger. He couldn't understand. Last time, he could tell the emperor clearly didn't favor Dibei Chun. So how could his attitude suddenly turn a complete 180? Lord, since Bailey Hongzhuang never put us in her sight, let's just not attend the wedding. Su Wanjing's normally gentle face was filled with hard-to-conceal anger. She truly regretted not directly killing Bailey Hongzhuang earlier. Hearing Su Wanjing's words, Bailey Jintao's anger exploded. The emperor himself bestowed the marriage and is even personally attending as a guest. If we don't come, won't we be seen as disrespecting the emperor? This was what he was the most furious at. Bailey Hongzhuang's actions simply left him with no other way out, trapping him. Did Bailey Hongzhuang think of all this a long time ago? If so, then Bailey Hongzhuang was just too terrible. He had been worrying since yesterday. If he attended the wedding, then Li Changqian would be able to taunt him to death. Just the thought of it was enough to make his scalp turn numb. Su Wanjing was startled. She never thought of it that way. Lord, are we not going to go? Su Wanjing's expression was ugly. She originally wanted to see that girl crawling back meekly, but now that she even had to attend her meeting, her heart simply couldn't stand it. Nonsense. Bailey Jintao looked at Su Wanjing disgusted. This woman simply had no brains at all. She couldn't help him with any of his troubles and asked him about every single thing. It was just sickening. Su Wanjing's face paled. Just now, she had clearly seen disgust in Bailey Jintao's eyes. She had been married to Bailey Jintao for many years. Even though there was at first a Qin Yayun, Bailey Jintao had never been angry at her. And now, because of Qin Yayun's daughter, Bailey Jintao is actually beginning to hate her. Thinking up to here, Su Wanjing's tears couldn't help but flow out from her eyes. Lord, how could you do such to me? Bailey Jintao was originally vexed, and when he saw Su Wanjing tears spill out, his heart had a burst of irritation. All day, you only know how to cry. What else can you do but cry? Su Wanjing's figure trembled as the tears grew more and more violent. An unspeakable sadness spread from the bottom of her heart. Seeing this, Bailey Haoshuan took a few steps forward and spoke. Father, since we can't do anything now, we might as well participate in the wedding with dignity. No matter the outcome, you are still an honored general. Who dares to tell us what to do? Even if that Prime Minister Li taunts us, it's no big deal if we just ignore them. I believe that he wouldn't dare to call us out just to mock us. Bailey Jintao's face relaxed slightly as he proudly looked at Bailey Haoshuan. In this family of his, only Bailey Haoshuan could share his worries. As for Su Wanjing and Bailey Yuyan, they were only good for causing trouble. The auspicious time arrived. Bailey Hongzhuang left Qinzhuang Garden, surrounded by a cluster of nannies and maids. In the garden, Bailey Hongzhuang saw a martial out-of-the-ordinary figure clad in red. Dibei Chun sat on a horse and had donned a matching red robe. His bewitchingly handsome face held an enormous smile, excluding happiness like a sun radiated heat, attracting everyone's attention. In that moment, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly felt as if a beloved person of hers was getting married and laughed, her laughter permeating with delight. Dibei Chun was also shocked as he looked at Bailey Hongzhuang. He had always thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would be very beautiful with her makeup and hair done as a bride. But what he saw today far surpassed his imagination. Compared to Bailey Hongzhuang's usual look, it was less pure and elegant, but more charming and enchanting. A smile capable of stealing a person's soul. He had never thought about what he wanted his bride to look like. But in that instant, he knew he wanted his bride to look like this. The two pairs of eyes met, sharing a smile worth 1,000 words. Under the sounds of firecrackers and blessings, Bailey Hongzhuang got on the bridal palanquin. She was slowly carried to Chun Imperial Palace. Chun Palace was lively. Many guests had arrived and were all laughing and talking about the wedding. I heard that it was Prince Chun who took the initiative to set the wedding date today. It seems like Prince Chun is really looking forward to marrying Bailey Hongzhuang. Huh? Who doesn't look forward to marrying a beautiful woman? Didn't you see that His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, was acting like he lost his soul? Sure, you can't say that aloud. One man said hastily, after today, Bailey Hongzhuang would become Princess Chun. If you pull back what happened between Xin Yuanhuan and Bailey Hongzhuang, today would be the day of your death. The person who said it naturally knew what he said was wrong and laughed hollowly. Do you think the general's household will come today? Bailey Hongzhuang and Prince Chun didn't even put them in their sight. The emperor will be coming soon. Bailey Jintao wouldn't dare to disobey the emperor's orders, so he'll definitely come. I think Bailey Hongzhuang was taking revenge. We all know very clearly just how the general's household treated her. The guest's face changed. This was the most watched wedding in the imperial city. The former crown prince's wife is marrying Prince Chun to become Princess Chun, while also completely disregarded her paternal family, making the general's household to lose face. Just the thought of this made them all feel that this wedding will be very interesting. For Bailey Hongzhuang to marry from Qinzhuang Garden, many people thought that Bailey Jintao just got what he deserved. Even if Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't cultivate, she was, after all, his daughter. It wasn't right for Bailey Jintao to treat Bailey Hongzhuang so shamefully. Two daughters, yet they were treated so differently. Why wouldn't Bailey Hongzhuang be so cold to the general's household? The firecrackers crackled, and everyone's faces revealed anticipation. The bride had arrived. Dibei Chun and Bailey Hongzhuang moved together to the front hall. Their bright red garments attracted everybody's eyes. Seeing Dibei Chun sitting on his wheelchair, everybody's heart sighed with emotion. A man of such peerless grace and elegance just had to be a cripple. If it wasn't for that, the two would truly be a great match. Just then, a sharp voice sounded. His Majesty, the Emperor, has arrived. His Royal Highness, the Crown Prince, has arrived. Everybody turned to bow. The fact that the Emperor himself is personally attending was enough to prove just how important the wedding was. Everybody may rise. Xin Yuan Yutian smiled and spoke. Today is Prince Chun and Princess Chen's joyous day. Everyone may relax. Thanks the Emperor, Li Qingqian's mood was currently very good. This wedding today made Bailey Jintao lose enough face. The Emperor had already arrived now, but Bailey Jintao still hasn't come. Once this crime was pinned on you, it wasn't a small deal. But when he rose his head, Li Qingqian's face couldn't help but change. Bailey Jintao and the rest of the general's household were standing just behind the Emperor and Crown Prince. I didn't expect that General Bailey would actually come with the Emperor. Li Qingqian tested the waters. Xin Yuan Yuqian chuckled. Just so happened to run into each other outside the palace and decided to come in together. Hearing this, Li Qingqian's face darkened. Bailey Jintao had really good luck. Bailey Jintao also looked at Li Qingqian darkly. After being rivals for so long, he was very clear what kind of things Li Qingqian plotted in his heart. Now that the Emperor was here, he wouldn't dare to say a thing. Since everybody is here, let the wedding begin. Xin Yuan Yutian took the initiative and sat down on the highest seat. This was a position meant specially for him. For the Emperor to personally come for the wedding, it was an unsurpassed honor for Chun Palace. Now everyone focused on the figure walking in. Earlier, she had just entered when the courier announced the arrival of the Emperor. Everybody was focused on the Emperor, and almost nobody took any notice of the bride's appearance. With one look, a stunned light emerged in everybody's eyes. Before, everybody had some understanding about Bailey Hongzhuang's looks, but now they could only feel like the rumors were too modest. Was Bailey Hongzhuang just attractive? No, she was an absolutely stunningly beautiful woman. Her looks were peerless in the world. Dibei Chan was known as the imperial city's most handsome man by the public. Any woman, no matter how beautiful, would only lose their light when standing next to him. But now as Bailey Hongzhuang stood next to him, everybody could only sigh emotionally. They were simply a match made in heaven. Wow, this Princess Chun is truly beautiful. We didn't see her for a few days, and she seemed to have grown even more gorgeous. Who was it that said the most beautiful woman in the imperial city was Li Yuyue? In my opinion, Princess Chun is the real, most beautiful woman in the imperial city. Right. If I could marry such a beautiful woman, I'd be willing to give away 10 years of my life. Everybody praised generously. Many of the people in the crowd were actually Bailey Hongzhuang's patients. Furthermore, many of their younger generation was preparing for the hunting feast. The cultivation pills that godly Dr. Square sold helped them a lot. Therefore, they were all very grateful to Bailey Hongzhuang. If it wasn't for her, how could so many of their problems be solved so easily? Xin Yuan Huan stared at the perfect, delicate face in front of him. He had known Bailey Hongzhuang for 10 years, but never ever had he truly looked at her. In his heart, Bailey Hongzhuang was always trash that wasn't at all worthy of his status, and whose appearance that couldn't even begin to be compared to Bailey Yuyan. And now, looking at her face that was glowing with good health, it was Bailey Yuyan who simply couldn't begin to be compared with her. Such beauty should have been loyally following him. It was him that should be in the groom's position right now, but now, it had nothing to do with him. The thought of Bailey Hongzhuang becoming Dibei Chen's made his chest feel unspeakably tight, his heart full of regret. The minute Bailey Yuyan entered Qin Palace, her eyes were always on Xin Yuan Huan. Now as she watched Xin Yuan Huan stare fixatedly at Bailey Hongzhuang, her heart had a burst of irritation. She turned her eyes to look at Bailey Hongzhuang. She wanted to see just how beautiful Bailey Hongzhuang's red wedding dress was to steal Xin Yuan Huan's soul. With just a glance, Bailey Yuyan's face turned extremely ugly, her heart crazed with jealousy. How could this woman become so beautiful in such a short amount of time? Sensing Bailey Yuyan's envious stare, Bailey Hongzhuang slowly turned her head to look at her. The eyes met, sparks flying in the air. Bailey Hongzhuang's exquisite, beautiful face formed an enchanting smile as she looked at Bailey Yuyan disdainfully. The present Bailey Yuyan had nothing to do for her. Even looking at her was a waste of time. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's attitude, Bailey Yuyan was so angry that her face turned red. Bailey Hongzhuang was really too hateful. First, pay respects to the emperor. Dibei Chun and Bailey Hongzhuang obediently paid respects to the emperor. But nobody could see the disdain and unwillingness present in Dibei Chen's eyes. Luckily, he didn't want to cause any drama and restrained himself. Xin Yuan Yutian calmed down and smiled, accepting Bailey Hongzhuang and Dibei Chen's bow. Second, bow to heaven and earth. Hearing the shout, Bailey Jintao's face stiffened. Since the emperor was here, they must first pay respects to the emperor. But then second, you must pay respects to the parents. Dibei Chun and Bailey Hongzhuang actually directly proceeded to bow to heaven and earth. Wasn't this just completely ignoring them? Dibei Chun and Bailey Hongzhuang bowed to heaven and earth. Husband and wife bow to each other. Everybody looked at each other blankly. It looks like the relationship between Bailey Hongzhuang and the general's household has truly become completely unfixable. Marrying not from the general's household, but somewhere else, and now even completely ignoring Bailey Jintao under the glare of the public eye. This was truly leaving them no face. Bailey Jintao's face was livid, his fists clenching tightly under his robes, the blue vein protruding on his forehead clearly showing the fury he felt inside. This unfilial daughter, daring to not give him any face in front of everyone. The light in Xin Yuan Yutian's eyes sunk. Dibei Chun and Bailey Hongzhuang were going too far. Isn't the second step bowing to the parents? What do you mean by this? Xin Yuan Yutian slowly opened his mouth and spoke, his behavior aggressive to Dibei Chun and Bailey Hongzhuang. The hall was in silence as everyone's eyes focused on Dibei Chun and Bailey Hongzhuang. Now that the emperor won't stand for it, what will they do? Bailey Yuyan's face looked like she was watching a play. This time, she wants to see how Bailey Hongzhuang will continue acting so arrogant. However, Bailey Hongzhuang's voice was calm and unhurried as she spoke, replying to the emperor. The truth is, a few days ago, General Bailey has already chosen to cut off all family ties. If not so, I wouldn't be marrying from a place elsewhere of the general's household today. In fact, she didn't even know that Dibei Chan would handle this matter so thoroughly, even going as far as to ignore the second step, bowing to the parents. But this was perfect for her. Taking advantage of this opportunity today, she can finally put an end to all and any relationships with the general's household. She doesn't need such a gang as family. By breaking off all ties, she can also free herself from a lot of worries. At the very least from then on, The general's household will no longer be qualified to find trouble with her. Bailey Hongzhuang's words fell. Bailey Jintao's face changed, and the crowd was stunned as they watched. Everybody knew that Bailey Hongzhuang and the general's household were in conflict with each other for a long time, but they didn't expect for Bailey Hongzhuang and Bailey Jintao to even cut off all father-daughter ties. If it was like this, Bailey Hongzhuang held no fault at all. Since she no longer had any relationship with Bailey Jintao, then, of course, she'd be marrying from Qinzhuang Garden. How could she possibly still marry from the general's household? Bailey Jintao looked at Bailey Hongzhuang angrily. He couldn't believe this girl actually dared to speak about this to the emperor. Bailey Yuyin's face, who was watching Bailey Hongzhuang like a play, had long been changed to worry. Bailey Hongzhuang sure was ruthless, directly forcing the general's household into an unjust situation. Although everybody silently ridiculed the general's household situation today, nobody thought that they did anything wrong. But now that Bailey Hongzhuang opened her mouth, everything became the general's household's fault while she was free of any mistakes. Xinyuan Yutian never expected to receive such a reply, his gaze landing on Bailey Jintao's body. General Bailey, is what Princess Chen said true? Bailey Jintao's face was embarrassed, and for that moment, he couldn't make up an answer. Seeing Bailey Jintao's reaction, Xinyuan Yutian easily understood the situation. So what Bailey Hongzhuang had said was true. On that day, this prince personally saw his future princess being forcefully kicked out of her home by the general's household, so this prince gave her Qinzhuang Garden as a betrothal gift. Dibei Chan suddenly raised his voice, his tone a little disdainful. General Bailey, are you saying you aren't satisfied with this prince as a son-in-law? In her mind, Bailey Hongzhuang was laughing wildly. Dibei Chen's ability to twist the truth and turn black into white was in no way lesser than her own. Pushing the blame on the victim, yet not forgetting to wash his hands clean of any responsibility. Hearing his words, everyone was in an uproar. Now, they could completely understand why Dibei Chen had directly ignored the general's household whilst conducting the wedding ceremony. If the general's household wasn't satisfied with him, then why must he go and cast his own misfortune? Xinyuan Yutian's eyes flashed with displeasure. If Bailey Jintao wasn't satisfied with Dibei Chen, then doesn't that mean he also wasn't satisfied with him for bestowing the marriage? Bailey Jintao looked at Dibei Chen. They've clearly never interacted before, but his words clearly revealed his dissatisfaction. Bailey Jintao added this on Bailey Hongzhuang's tab. If it wasn't for Bailey Hongzhuang telling Dibei Chen, then how would Dibei Chen have such a misunderstanding with him? Emperor, this official was only unhappy and said those words in a moment of anger. By no means was I unsatisfied with the marriage. Bailey Jintao hastily argued back. It really wouldn't be good if the emperor formed a bad opinion of him because of this. Although Bailey Jintao quickly clarified himself, the emperor's face was still stiff as he turned and waved his hand. Continue the wedding. Everybody looked at each other in dismay. It looks like a rift had been created between the emperor and General Bailey. The ritual finished, and Bailey Hongzhuang arrived at the wedding room with the help of a nanny. The nanny left after saying some things, leaving Bailey Hongzhuang in the room alone. Bailey Hongzhuang relaxed. Getting married was truly too exhausting. In comparison, Dibei Chen had to entertain the guests outside and must be even more tired. Master, that Bailey Jintao is definitely out of luck this time. Little Black said with a laugh. Just a look at that old codger made his mood turn bad. Now watching Bailey Jintao dumbfounded, speechless, he was very happy. At the very least, because of this, the emperor is very dissatisfied with Bailey Jintao. Probably now, Bailey Jintao will have to behave with his tail tucked under his legs. Little White's eyes curved into crescents. She was always worried whenever she watched Bailey Jintao rage at Bailey Hongzhuang. Now it was time for revenge. Haha, from now on, we won't have to see that old codger's disgusting face. Little Black and Little White's tiny faces were full of glee. Although the marriage was no more than a farce, now Bailey Jintao doesn't have any qualifications to speak to Bailey Hongsanag. Now, their ears can finally be clean. Bailey Hongzhuang revealed a faint smile. Bailey Jintao and the rest of the general's household must be on tenterhooks right now. Even though she knew that she wasn't Bailey Jintao's daughter, she still wanted justice for the previous dead Bailey Hongzhuang. Master, so much yummy food on the table. Little Black's eyes stared at the food and wine. Since he came in, he was always attracted by the fragrance. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. Today, her mood was quite good as she waved her hands. Eat. Taking care of the guests won't take a short time, so she might as well fill her stomach. The moon rose on the tip of a willow branch, the night like water. When Dibei-chan opened the door and saw the mess on the table, a smile appeared on his face. He didn't feel anything strange about the scene. After all, the woman he married was in whichever way completely different from an ordinary woman. This was Bailey Hongzhuang's charm. Wifey, I'm here. Dibei-chan slowly went in front of Bailey Hongzhuang, a smile on his face. Dibei-chan seemed to have drank a large amount of liquor. His bewitchingly handsome face flushed like he was drunk. It was very different from the day. Seeing how Dibei-chan could still remember to act crippled even when drunk, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with admiration. This man really wasn't simple. It was hard on you. Bailey Hongzhuang raised an eyebrow, speaking casually. Dibei-chan frowned. Is this the only thing wifey wants to say to me? What else? Dibei-chan smiled ambiguously, turning to pour 2 cups of wine in front of Bailey Honghao. He handed her one of the 2 cups. May we live happily together until our hair grows white from old age. Bailey Hongzhuang was startled. Looking at the faint smile on Dibei-chan's face, she had no clue if he actually serious or just joking. This marriage is nothing but a mutual cooperation with each other. You can't be too serious about it. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly said. Wifey's spoiling the fun. Dibei-chan pretended to be unhappy. On the wedding night, you should still say something. Bailey Hongzhuang was too lazy to dispute Dibei-chan's nonsense. Right now, that guy couldn't even distinguish between what was true and what was false. She clinked her glass to his happy cooperation. Dibei-chan's smile brightened, and he raised his cup, draining the wine in one shot. With a beauty accompanying me, this wine becomes much more rich. Bailey Jintao already left. Bailey Hongzhuang asked calmly, her voice unhurried. You left him no face in front of everybody. How could he continue to stay here? Dibei-chan asked back. He made an excuse saying he didn't feel well and left. TSK. Now I'm afraid he completely hates me. Saying this, Dibei-chan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang innocently, his eyes clear and bright. Wifey, you must comfort my wounded heart. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled quietly. You were the one who provoked him first. Even she didn't expect for Dibei-chan to go so far to skip the wedding vow, not giving Bailey Jintao the slightest bit of face before using words to force him into an awkward situation. Wifey, you can't say things like that. I did it for you. Listening, Bailey Hongzhuang shrugged. But inside, her heart was touched. Dibei-chan did this accounting for her emotions. No matter what, doing so in front of the emperor, it was a very heavy risk for him. He knew this, but he still chose to do such a thing. That was enough to explain everything. After a long time, Bailey Hongzhuang quietly spoke, Thank you. She was very clear that even if the emperor was personally attending, there was no way she could bring herself to bow to Bailey Jintao. With that, the situation would have become even more difficult to end. His deep, ocean-like pupils flashed with a ray of light as a dubious smile suddenly bloomed on Dibei-chan's face. Wifey, now you're my princess. Why speak so formally? This long-awaited spring night is bitterly short, and talking will only waste time. Won't it be better to do something more meaningful? By the time he finished, Dibei-chan's tone was extremely ambiguous. Bailey Hongzhuang's face reddened. On a wedding night, she naturally understood what husband and wife were supposed to do. Yes, the night is deep, it's time to sleep. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Dibei Chen's eyes flashed. He was looking forward to Bailey Hongzhuang, but instead, she just went and prepared to sleep on the bed. Wifey's words are right. The night is good, truly good for sleeping. Deliberately saying the word good twice, Dibei Chen's mouth was blooming with flowers. But the next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang threw 2 blankets at Dibei Chen, the smile on her mouth elegant and charming. Since you're having a hard time, sleep on the ground and have a good rest. Finishing her words, she directly turned and laid on the bed, using her actions to prove her point. Watching Bailey Hongzhuang, a helpless smile appeared on Dibei Chen's face as he looked at the 2 blankets in his hands. But even so, a spoiling, loving light appeared in his eyes. Seeing how Dibei Chen didn't do anything but lie on the ground and sleep, Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Even with having lived 2 lifetimes, she still had no experience. Lying on the soft bed, it took a long time for Bailey Hongzhuang to fall asleep. Maybe it was because she had never slept on such a soft bed in elegant Daylily Pavilion. It took her a while to adjust. Or maybe it was because there was never a man breathing in the room as she slept. Wifey, is the candle too bright for you to sleep? Dibei Chen asked, concerned as he suddenly got up from the floor. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but be surprised and immediately pointed. The red candle's too bright. I'm not used to it. Her heart couldn't help but feel a little guilty. In fact, she couldn't sleep because of Dibei Chen. The room turned dark as Dibei Chen blew out the candle. Now wifey can rest well. Thank you, Bailey Hongzhuang replied, and the room fell into silence. Oh well, she just won't sleep tonight and have a good rest tomorrow. Suddenly, Bailey Hongzhuang heard light footsteps coming from outside the door. Although the footsteps were actually very quiet, as a cultivator, her hearing was far above an ordinary person's and almost immediately discovered them. It's so late. Who would be sneaking around outside their door? Just when Bailey Hongzhuang was about to get up to see who was being so sneaky, her body was suddenly pinned down by a large silhouette. Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help and scream, but Dibei Chen covered her mouth, not allowing a single sound to leak through. Dibei Chen leaned close to her ear, his voice low as he whispered, "The walls have ears, someone may be listening." Hearing his voice, Bailey Hongzhuang's tense body relaxed a little as she started to think. Only the emperor could have sent these people. Although she still wasn't clear what Dibei Chen's identity was, she knew that the emperor was very wary of him. As for the rumor about him being an illegitimate child, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't believe it at all after learning his true strength. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Dibei Chen and gestured for him to get down. Just how much longer does this guy want to lie on her body? Although Dibei Chen wasn't very heavy, this face-to-face posture, it was just too ambiguous. Wife, you're so beautiful. Dibei Chen's voice was low and hoarse, his eyes staring at this woman whose beauty could overturn entire cities, and a strange feeling spread in his heart. Moonlight peeked through the window, spilling in the room. It was just barely enough to see the other's face, beautiful and hazy, making the atmosphere even more intoxicating. Bailey Hongzhuang was slightly startled. This was the first time she saw Dibei Chen's face up close. She could clearly feel his breath on her skin, burning hot, yet somewhat itchy. She couldn't help but want to shrink her neck away. The pair of bewitching, deep eyes were glowing with a dazzling light. Even the starry sky was lost to his sparkling eyes. The two stared at one another. In that moment, they almost forgot about the people standing outside the door. In their eyes, there were only each other. The room was extremely quiet. Bailey Hongzhuang could clearly hear her own heartbeat hammering in her chest. Thump, thump, interrupting her usual calmness. In my opinion, Prince Chen definitely won't have a problem. Princess Bailey is such a rare beauty who would deliberately choose to miss the opportunity. But why isn't there any sound? Outside the room, they were putting their ears on the door, listening for any movement inside the room. Although they weren't sure why they were given such a job, since the higher-ups told them to do so, they could only do it. Dibei-chan rapped his knuckles on the headboard and moved a little. Hearing the sounds, understanding smiles appeared on the two faces outside. It looks like they can report back with accomplishments. As the two's footsteps walked away, Bailey Hongzhuang was relieved. The two were finally dealt with. You can get down now. Dibei-chan looked at her with a smile. Wifey, you're blushing. Even in the room's dim lighting, he could still see Bailey Hongzhuang's reddened cheeks. Love and affection suddenly filled his heart. Bailey Hongzhuang felt her body turn stiff as his hot breath fanned her face. Her voice was hard. You want a lot. Oh, Dibei-chan raised an eyebrow, deliberately dragging his voice. Originally this was, you hurry up and get off. Bailey Hongzhuang was ashamed into anger. At first, she wanted to directly kick this guy off the bed, but then she feared it'd be too loud and the two people outside would hear. And second, because this guy's strength was so big, she couldn't even push him. Seeing Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance, the smile in Dibei-chan's eyes deepened. Usually, Bailey Hongzhuang always looked calm and indifferent. It was the first time he saw other emotions in her eyes, and although it was anger, he still felt it was very cute. The next moment, Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes turned shocked as Dibei-chan's handsome face slowly approached her. She immediately pushed against him, but his body was like an unmoving hill. This guy was viewing her as a joke. Just as Dibei-chan's face was about to touch Bailey Hongzhuang's lips, Bailey Hongzhuang suddenly jerked her head to the side. His warm breath blew on the nape of her neck as he raised his head to whisper words that made her ears turn red. Wifey, you're really cute. Dibei-chan's words were spoken with sincerity. Bailey Hongzhuang was truly so cute that others just couldn't resist. If you don't get down, I'll give you a taste of life worse than death. Bailey Hongzhuang grinded her teeth. This guy dared to tease her so much. She had to let him see her power. Dibei-chan's face changed slightly. He could clearly feel Bailey Hongzhuang bending her knees. His little wife can really be ruthless. Suddenly, Dibei-chan's lips hooked up into a bewitching smile. He tightly hugged her and reversed their positions. Now, Bailey Hongzhuang laid on his body. Wifey, you're too cruel. Bailey Hongzhuang was also stunned for a moment, being hugged tightly by Dibei-chan. Both her hands rushed at Dibei-chan. This man was just too hateful. Seeing how Bailey Hongzhuang was truly unhappy, Dibei-chan caught her hands and smiled quietly. Okay, I'll stop teasing you. Saying so, Dibei-chan released his hands, allowing Bailey Hongzhuang to leave his arms. Looking at Dibei-chan's appearance after taking advantage of her, Bailey Hongzhuang snorted coldly. She won't care about this guy any longer, but in her heart, she was actually sulking. If she had more time to cultivate, then she never wouldn't have been suppressed by this guy. When they had fought with each other, the jade pendant also fell with the outer robe of her dress. When Dibei-chan saw the jade, the light in his eyes sharpened. Wife, where did you get the jade pendant from? Listening to Dibei-chan's almost shocked voice, a light flashed in Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes. Dibei-chan's tone clearly revealed that he knew something about the jade pendant. Since Bailey Hongzhuang found this, the only proof of her identity, she had always been carrying it around on her body. She could only hope that she could find her biological parents sometime in the future. Just the jade pendant couldn't really mean anything. In her view, trying to find her parents with the jade pendant alone was just too difficult. She never thought that there was someone by her side that actually knew about it. You know what this jade pendant is? Bailey Hongzhuang asked. Dibei-chan stared deeply at Bailey Hongzhuang and spoke. That jade pendant is a family token. Before, I had just so happened to have accidentally seen a similar pendant in Fengbo country. A family token? Bailey Hongzhuang was a little surprised. From which family? The Lan family. Dibei-chan's words were blunt. As long as somebody was on at least his level, they would all know that this jade pendant belonged to the Lan family. But the strange thing was, why is this jade pendant with Bailey Hongzhuang? Since it was a family token, it was very precious. Furthermore, the jade pendant was something only directly related descendants of the Lan family could have. It'd be extremely strange for it to have fallen into the hands of an outsider. The Lan family? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrow. Fengbo country doesn't have a Lan family. I never said that the Lan family was in Fengbo country. Rather, it's an aristocratic family famous for being on the apex of cultivation. The Lan family. Bailey Hongzhuang's heart couldn't help but be shocked. As the family head in her past life, she knew very clearly just how powerful of a background it was to be most prestigious aristocratic cultivation family on the continent. According to reason, a direct descendant of such a family usually wouldn't go to such a small, unknown country like Fengbo. Moreover, her parents were being chased, making the possibility of them coming willingly almost zero. Watching Bailey Hongzhuang lower her head and think deeply, Dibei Chen's deep, ocean-like eyes flashed with intelligence. The fact that Bailey Hongzhuang possessed the jade pendant alone was enough to prove her connection with the Lan family. Otherwise, how could she even have the chance to hang it around her neck? Wife, do you have a relationship with the Lan family? Dibei Chen slowly asked, his handsome face unusually serious. Bailey Hongzhuang lifted her head. The moonlight was dim, specks of light falling on Dibei Chen's elegant and perfect face, letting her clearly see his appearance. After a long while, Bailey Hongzhuang spoke aloud. Can I trust you? Dibei Chen's eyes changed as his lips formed a quiet smile. You and I are husband and wife now. Of course you can trust me. Seeing how Dibei Chen was still speaking so flippantly, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't bother to talk to him again, turning around to leave. Dibei Chen caught her hand and suddenly pulled, reversing their positions so she was under him. It was just like before, but this time, he was even closer to her. I was saying the truth. Dibei Chen stared at Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes gentle. You have to believe, no matter what, I won't ever do anything to hurt you. The words were spoken by Dibei Chen like an oath, firm and devoted. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes slowly changed. In that moment, she saw Dibei Chen's true dedication. The reason she asked this question was because although she and Dibei Chen's relationship was a bit messy, she still believed that he wouldn't harm her. Sometimes, there doesn't need to be any reason to have a heart-to-heart. If two people believe each other to be able to get along, then it counts as having gotten along. Whatever you want to say or ask, you can just talk frankly. Dibei Chen smiled. I won't tell anyone. A gentle smile blossomed on Bailey Hongzhuang's face. Actually, I'm not a daughter of the Bailey family. Hearing her words, Dibei Chen's eyes that were usually still and tranquil like a lake suddenly became turbulent, the waves similar to a stormy sea. This was a possibility he hadn't ever thought of before. Earlier, he had already sent some people to search Bailey Hongzhuang's background, but still hadn't ever heard anything about this. He was very clear of his own abilities. If he still couldn't find out, then that's just how deeply guarded of a secret that was. Chapter 100. I found out when I left the general's household through my mother's diary. As for the jade pendant, my biological mother hung it on my neck before she left me. If you hadn't known about this jade pendant, I still never would have known what it represented. A Lan family daughter. That was the first thing Dibei Chen's mind came to. But after thinking about it, he knew that it was impossible. He was very clear what kind of monster the Lan family was. How could the powerful Lan family let a child be dropped outside? How did the general's household wife take you? Dibei Chen asked again. Bailey Hongzhuang explained, clearly telling him everything she knew from her mother's diary. She also wanted to know more about her own life. Your whole body was covered in blood. Dibei Chen's handsome face frowned. The Lan family has always been strong. Even in the entire Shengshua continent, there were very few powers that could contend with them. It was impossible for a daughter of the Lan family to be reduced to such a state. But if not so, How could a Lan family jade token be on Bailey Hongzhuang's body? Suddenly, Dibei Chen's eyes flashed, suddenly recalling something. Wife, was it true that you couldn't cultivate? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. Yes. So, what was the reason why you couldn't cultivate? While everyone knew that Bailey Hongzhuang had a trash physique and couldn't cultivate, nobody knew if she was trash because of her body's constitution, if the meridians were damaged, or some other problem or not. Bailey Hongzhuang inspected Dibei Chen, sensing he knew something. Otherwise, he wouldn't suddenly be asking her this. My dantian was broken. Bailey Hongzhuang replied truthfully. When she had first found out, she had thought it was very strange. In this world, people usually became trash because there was a problem with their body's constitution or the meridians were blocked. A dantian could only be broken if the body was seriously injured. At that time, she was very young. It should have been almost impossible for someone to deal such a ruthless hand to her. Finally hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's reply, Dibei Chen's face suddenly changed, his normally calm face revealing shock. What does my broken dantian have to do with my history? The light in Dibei Chen's eyes sunk, slowly saying, I remember many years ago, the Lan family created a big stir. The most favored son of the Lan family had betrayed the family, killing many of the family's members before leaving with his wife and daughter. Bailey Hongzhuang was startled. If such a thing really did happen in the Lan family, then could it be that it impacted the Lan family greatly? Lan Yanxiao was the most promising candidate to become family head, so nobody could understand why he would suddenly turn his back on the Lan family. This was a secret the Lan family had deliberately kept hidden from the world. So many people only knew of the results and not what actually had happened. You mean I could be that Lan Yanxiao's daughter? Bailey Hongzhuang asked aloud. Dibei Chen pondered. It's not impossible. Your jade pendant is a Lan family token, something that only direct descendants of the Lan family possess. It's impossible for it to fall into the hands of outsiders. My parents seemed like they were fleeing from something and was forced to leave me with the general's household. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. Was it the Lan family that killed my parents? Dantian, a place 2 points below the navel where Chi resides that you're tuning in to the Romance Rendezvous YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.